What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Reality TV RHAPpy Hour. My name is Jordan Parhar, and today we are back with some Big Brother coverage here on robhaswebsite.com. It's been too long, and with me are some great pals of mine. First is a man who is very excited to be talking about love on the weekend. It's Taran Armstrong, ladies and gentlemen. Taran, how are you?
I'm great, Jordan. I'm so excited to be here. I've been like just itching to talk about Big Brother, and as you mentioned, we are also going to be talking about love pretty soon, which is also very exciting.
Very, very exciting for humans and robots alike.
Yes, I am a doctor, robot love of masterness.
Okay. Okay. All right. There we go, Taran. Next on the panel tonight is a man who agrees with me that Tom Brady should retire after winning his 5th Super Bowl. It's Brent. Welcome on, ladies and gentlemen. Brent, how are you?
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Jordan, it's nice to see you. Melissa, lovely as always to have you back. Taran, all I can say to you is, hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. That's all I got.
So good. We're gonna get a copyright strike.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I heard that on a figure skating thing that I was watching for the European Championships. They danced to that song, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Taran!" Like, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." Like, that's my relationship with Taran.
Oh, man. So great. And last but not least on the panel tonight is a woman who's making her first appearance on a preseason podcast as a member of the LFC, and we're very happy to have her here. It's Melissa Denny, ladies and gentlemen. Melissa, how are you?
I'm very excited to be here, and I am excited to talk about Big Brother because I feel like we haven't talked about Big Brother in a really long time, and, you know, it needs to be talked about 24/7,
So here we are. That's what we're doing here today. And I know people watching us live or that are here with us on robhaswebsite.com, you're probably wondering, hey, where's Alex Kidwell? Well, Alex is busy on a love tour right now. He just recently moved to Los Angeles. So, the time zones are a little messed up in his head. He's gotten some scheduling messed up. So Alex might show up at any point tonight. It just depends on when his love tour gets finished for this evening. We're hoping he shows up. But who knows? Who knows? We'll see. It's going to be a surprise.
Yeah, but we have his list though. So if that, if all else fails, we know what he thought.
We know what he thought. We won't know. We won't get his detailed thoughts or opinions, but that's okay. I'm sure he'll come. He's got to come, right? I mean, he
needs a lot of love, Jordan.
He does, right? So yeah. I think, he just needs some extra love. He'll be back hopefully at some point tonight. We don't know where he is. But if you are out there, Alex Kidwell, I just want you to know I love you. I love you very much. Okay, let's set things up for you guys. We are live on robhaswebsite.com. We've got the chat room going over on the show page. You can find that and chat with some people by going to chatwing.com/RHAPpy Hour if you want to do that. We're going to probably not be taking your questions. Maybe we'll take some of your comments at the end if you want to send those in. You can use #RHAPpy Hour on Twitter. You can tweet me. I am at Jordan Parhar. Before we get started tonight, guys, and set things up for you, I just want to apologize on behalf of everyone. This is mainly my fault. Lack of BB content really recently. And that mainly has to do with the fact that I've just been super, super busy with school. I've recently made a change in terms of switching schools and majors and everything. So and I've started a new job. So my schedule's been a lot busier lately. So I've had to kind of adjust to that. Don't worry in terms of the BB Camp 5 coverage. We'll definitely still have that for you. But in case you're wondering where, hey, where's the rankings of the top 10 stupidest players ever podcast. That's why we haven't done that, is just because I just haven't had a ton of time. But
you know what, JP, you don't need to apologize. Honestly, I needed the respite after BBOTT. I mean, I was glad to just not talk about Big Brother for 45, 60 days. Like, this feels great because I'm refreshed, I'm invigorated, and I'm ready to go.
Woo, let's go, yes, as Corey would say. Yes, we are. I feel the same way, Brent. I think it's going to be a better for our coverage moving forward that we had a little bit of a break here. So just to set things up for you guys, I have in my notes that, normally I get Alex to set a lot of these up for me, but he's absent tonight. So Taran, I'm going to throw it to you. What are we doing today? What are we doing today, my friend?
We are speculating. We're wildly speculating. We're saying, if Big Brother Canada 5 was an all-star season, what would that cast look like? Like what? Who would they cast? Realistically, who would be willing to play in a Big Brother All-Star season for Big Brother Canada? And we each drafted 10 people that we thought would be cast in the BB Can 5 All-Star season. And for the male and the female side, we averaged it all together. We came up with an ultimate cast list for what we think this cast will look like moving forward, if it's actually an all-star cast.
And I'm not trying to interrupt right now, but like it sounds like there's a bit of a short in Taran's mic. Am I the only one hearing that? Because if I am, then that's good. If I'm the only one hearing that right now.
Taran sounded good to me, Brent.
Okay.
We can Taran, if you want to maybe take a look at that when you've got a break there, we can see if that.
If anybody else is hearing it, make sure you tweet us, because
just let us know in the chat if anything.
Okay, yeah, chat.
Okay, so let's so Taran, thank you for setting that up for us. So basically that's what we're here to do today. The LFC took their, they gave their thoughts on who they think production for Big Brother Canada 5 would give a call first if they were to do an all-star season. We don't know any information in terms of being an all-star season. There are rumors out there. There's people saying, it's it's definitely all-stars. Other people on Twitter like, oh no, it's BB Can versus US. To be frank, nobody really knows except production what's going to happen. But, we thought this would be a fun exercise. We did it for BB18. That was a really fun podcast. Figured what better way to quench the thirst of some people out there looking for some BB Can 5 coverage, because we haven't gotten really any information about that yet. And the show's supposed to premiere in March. So we should be getting some information relatively quickly, but for now we're gonna have to settle with this list that we've got set up here. Now, just to repeat this for you guys, so you guys know, these are not my picks. I did not submit picks for this because I am biased. I have a lot of friends in the Big Brother Canada community. I don't want to, I'm not gonna be able to give a unbiased opinion on this, so I did not participate in this. I'm just going to talk to these guys about what they made in terms of their picks. So if you have beef with anybody about this, don't take it up with me. Take it up with Alex Kidwell, ladies and gentlemen. Blame Alex. It's Alex's and these guys as well, but it's Alex's list as well. So if you got issues, just take it to him. He's at Alex Kidwell on Twitter, by the way. Okay, so anyway, so we're gonna do this. Some people say it's too early for all-stars. We're going to do this exercise. We're going to see if that'll give us a bit of clarity on
Balderdash. That is not true.
Yeah, well, we'll see. When we get this list at the end, I'll let you guys decide. The listeners, you can decide, hey, do you think this is a good cast or not? We'll go from there. Anything you guys want to talk about before we get into it? Brent, Melissa, Taran?
Well, how's my mic now?
Your mic is good, Taran. You're good. Brent,
yeah, we were hearing it was that you were soft and you were clicking before, and I know the chat room also heard it. So I just want to make sure we got that taken care of right at the top. I wanted to say really quickly that this is as I think the casting producers will behave, not what I personally want. And I was actually shocked to see that I agreed with you guys on most things, but there were a couple of what the F's here and there that I didn't really understand. And I look forward to talking about that with you and telling you why you're wrong.
Yeah, that's what I did too. I tried to put myself in the mind of a producer and see who I would want to have on the show for ratings or for viewers to enjoy. I went by the producers, not necessarily best gamers or who I wanted or anything like that.
All right, so we will let's get into it. Let's start. So we cast 8 guys, 8 girls, and an alternate for each, and then each member of the LFC had an honorable mention as well. So we'll get into that towards the end, but we don't want to spoil. Normally we count from the bottom up, but since it's kind of obvious who the top people would be in terms of being called are, we're going to start with the top and we're going to work our way to the bottom. So
right, it's a new administration, JP, where we're taking care of the top people first, and the people at the bottom, they can whatever.
Yeah, forget about the people at the bottom. We're only caring about the people at the top. Okay, so let's start with the girls. By the way, this is very fun. I'm very excited to get into this. I think this is going to be great. Let's start with number 1 on the list. This person was far and away number 1 in terms of the women. She came in 3rd place on Big Brother Canada 2. She won 2 HOHs and 1 POV. She was nominated 3 times, and she's infamous for just just running that entire season. It's Netta Kalantar. So Netta Kalantar is number 1 on the list for the females. You guys felt that she would be the first one called. I think you guys nailed this pick personally. Melissa, how do you think Netta would do on a second chance?
I think people would know her game, and I think that they'd try and target her right away because she's such a good player. And I mean, now she's like basically universally known as like one of the best players to ever play BB-Can. And even like in comparison to like BBUS, people like put her in the top tier. So I think that people will definitely try and get her out right away. But I think that she also I think she's going to want to play really hard, but also really smart because she kind of has like something to prove because she like got out last time and didn't actually win it. And she came this close. So I think she, I want to say she would do well, but I think people will target her right away.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. It's gonna be tough. Taran, what's your take on that?
Well, clearly we have established that Netta is the best Big Brother Canada player of all time on this very podcast, Jordan.
Yes,
so,
that is true. If you want to go listen to that podcast, go back to March of last year. Or no, maybe it was February. I don't remember, but I wasn't on it, so I can't remember. But go ahead, Taran.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, clearly she just tops all of our lists. I mean, we could probably make a list about anything for Big Brother Canada players, and Netta would probably be number 1. Unfortunately, that probably also makes her number 1 on the hit list for anybody that goes into the house. I mean, I think she's got a lot of friends, but I think most of those friends would stab her in the back in 2 seconds. So, like, I'm not super hopeful with her chances, but I do want to see her play, and I think she will play. I think they have to get Netta.
Taran, what's the game plan? If you're Netta and you go back on a season, like let's say hypothetically this is All-Stars and she does have to go back, like how do you get rid of that target? Because I honestly don't know.
Well, I mean, the 2 people that we have seen do this successfully are Dr. Will and Dan. I think you should look at their games. Dan, he sort of sabotages himself on purpose to create a weak persona, and Will creates this persona of like, I'm too good for this. I don't care. Don't even bother looking at me.
Yeah, but Will won though. That was the difference. Will won that season that the previous season that he played. So he can act like, well, I don't need this. I'm too good for this. I don't know that Netta can really pull that off. I would like to talk about the votes here because it was sort of an interesting. I would like you guys to know that normally I'm last to submit my votes. I made sure I was first this time. That way anybody couldn't say that I was trying to play some games with my picks. So
not that you ever do that, Brent.
I don't do that. I don't look at other people's picks ahead of time, but I can see that there may be some perception that I would do that. But everyone voted for Netta first. Melissa voted for her first. Taran first. Alex first. Brent did not. Brent has Netta at number 5.
Yes, and that is what I wanted to ask you, Brent, is why did you have Netta so low? I was very confused about this.
Well, first of all, I am the president of the Netta fan club. I mean, I would love to have her back. I love her. I love her shoes. I love everything about Netta. Okay? But you guys, I mean, no offense to Queen Netta, but we're looking at it from the casting producer's perspective. I think she's hurt by a variety of things, not least of which is she was a wallflower for the first part of Big Brother Canada 2. I mean, if Canada's HOH doesn't come in there and help her, I really don't want to know how that story ends for Netta Kalantar. On the other hand, it did happen, and she did come out of her shell. She did what Rob Cesternino always says to do, which is go to sleep for the first month of the game and then come out hard and play. On the other hand, that's not what the producers want you to do. They don't. If everybody did that, they would have no show. So I don't think that that's necessarily something in her favor from a casting producer's perspective. And I would also like to say, I think she's hurt by the fact that somebody else may be coming back. If we cast John Party on our season, I don't know that the casting producers would want to cast both of them. And if John comes back, I think there is a chance that Netta doesn't come back at all. I mean, look, love Netta or not, but I think that there were elements to her personality that were not scintillating TV, that were not scintillating feeds, especially early on. And I think from a producer's perspective, you're wondering, well, which Netta am I going to get? Am I going to get the one who was like in the corner not saying much for the first 4 weeks? Or am I going to get the one who called out Allison in her nomination speech and said, I want you out on my HOH? I mean, which one is it? I'm hoping the latter, but I can see where they would be reticent to cast her in fear of getting the former.
So you think that? Go ahead, Melissa.
Well, I think it's totally possible that they would want to cast her and John together.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she was betrayed by him. Like, I mean, taking out of the fact that they like were in a real relationship outside of it, and they probably have like their own issues, like whatever. The point is that she was betrayed by him, and that's like a great story to see, like her come back and like get her revenge, or however you want to put it. And I think that she also like. I think that maybe from a producer's perspective, she wasn't the most entertaining, but I think that the producers know that the fans love her. And I think that they would want to bring back someone who the fans love. And they're also going to want good strategists there. Like, I mean, not everyone needs to be like entertaining, and like she could just be like a great strategist.
I hear you. I take your point on that. On the other hand, I don't think the producers give a shit about what the fans want. If they did, then they wouldn't have did what they did to Mitch during Big Brother Canada 4. We all love Mitch. We all thought he was playing the best game, and they basically said, fuck off, we're going to get rid of him. That's what happened. So I don't think they give a shit what the fans want. And I know you guys are with me on that.
I mean, in terms of the twist, maybe, but in terms of getting people to watch the show,
okay, all right.
If you want to get ratings, okay, the best way to guarantee you get ratings is you get people that the fans love, and Netta is arguably the most popular person that has ever played this game, at least in terms of this community, the people watching this podcast. Everyone here today watching us live, you guys, Netta is probably your favorite player, or one of your favorite players. You know, maybe not so much with the casual fans, but even with the casual fans, you know, you can go up and be like, oh, you know who Netta is? Of course. I think people.
Right. And the thing about John, I think, is more of a minor point. I think my major point is the fact that she was a wallflower and needed a twist to help her come out of her shell, which is how I viewed it. I'm sure, you know, maybe Taran has a different view of how Netta interacted with people during her season, and then ultimately what happened after Canada's HOH. But I didn't love the fact that for the first 4 to 5 weeks of the show, I barely knew who she was.
I think that I don't think they really care about how she may or may not perform. I think they care about, like, when you think about Big Brother Canada, what are the names that come to mind? And I think Netta, John, you know, I think she's one of those names, and I think that they would be remiss to themselves if they didn't get her on, and I think she's very willing to as well. So that's why she was number one for me.
Yeah, face of the franchise, really, in my opinion.
And All Stars is like supposed to be like the best of the best competing. Like, I know there's like other versions of it. I mean, like Survivor's got like Game Changers, and you've got like all different kinds of like little subsets, but All Stars should be like the best of the best, and Netta is clearly like number one.
Yeah, and if we look at BB7 and we look at how that All-Star season was cast, you know, we didn't have all of the quote-unquote best players. There were a lot of poor players on there and more so big characters, but you did have the best player, Dr. Will Kirby. So, and I think they're going to have the best players. The best of the best will be there. Netta's best of the best, in my opinion. But
anyway. They cast Danielle Reyes, and she
was
of
course.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very similar, right?
The true fans love Danielle Reyes, but
yes,
like some of the casuals,
no.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. They were like, "Oh, we like Lisa." Yeah, okay, yeah.
I like Lisa too. I love Lisa.
I like Lisa too. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to number 2 on the list, and this person was not as high as Netta, but was only a few points behind her. She was very high on everyone's list for the most part here. She came in 4th place on Big Brother Canada 4. She had 1 HOH win, 1 Power Veto win. She was nominated 3 times, and she was a fan favorite from her season. And we are talking, of course, about Cassandra Schadenfar. So Cassandra comes in at number 2 on the list. Brent, you were probably the number 1 Cass fan amongst us here on this panel. Talk to me why you think production would call her, and do you think that this maybe is a little bit of recency bias?
No, I don't think it's recency bias. I think she's batshit crazy. I think that they would love to have her back. I think she was great TV. She was great feeds. She's everything you want in a Big Brother contestant. She doesn't have a muzzle for her mouth, and I don't know that she would be able to muzzle herself if she came back a second time. She's like me. She's one of these people. She just can't help but tell you what she thinks, and that's not great gameplay, but it's scintillating feeds, and that's the last time I'm going to use the word scintillating on this podcast. I need to think of a new adjective. Anyway, the point is that Cass is just wonderful. I mean, I love the fact that basically it took her father to get herself an HOH, and she didn't care. She was like, yeah, you know what? My dad went out there and got me an HOH, and I'm going to wear it proud like I earned it. And, you know, if you watch her podcast with us and other outlets after the fact, I mean, she just was a ball of joy. I mean, I love the fact that she wears her emotions on her sleeve. She is not like the first person on our list in Netta. Netta keeps her emotions close to her vest sometimes. Cass never does. And so I think that it is a foregone conclusion that she would be asked back. She was number 3 on my list, Alex's list, and Melissa's list, and she was number 2 on Taran's list. So we were very consistent, 2, 3, 3, 3, all the way across the board for Cassandra.
We all love Cass on this panel. If I had a list, I don't have one, but if I did, she'd probably be in a similar spot as well. I think that Cass is somebody that the fans, again, going back to the fans love her, and I think she's great TV. Melissa, what do you think? We didn't have you here during Big Brother Canada 4 on the LFC panel. What did you think about Cass's game?
I liked her game. I mean, I thought she was a smart player, and I thought she was good at, manipulating other people. And I thought that her friendship with Tim was like great to watch, and like all of their like live feed stuff together was hilarious. So I think that like she would be a great person to watch, mainly because of the entertainment value, but I also think she has the strategy. So I think that it's kind of like a combination of both, where it wouldn't just be about the entertainment. It would also be that she'd be a good player.
Right. And she was ballsy. I mean, like Taran, like she's the person who writes your face in a live double eviction and then go around and stab you in the back 10 minutes later and just laugh about it. I mean, like, come on. We love this sort of stuff.
She's the player that people, even casual people, like to watch because she's such a big character, and she's very, very, very entertaining. She's also somebody that I like to watch because she is so bold and she tries to like be manipulative and backstabbing. That's always fun. I did think her game was a little overstated in the edit, but I think that works to her favor as far as All-Stars go. I think she was basically the star of Big Brother Canada 4, especially after a certain point. And so that for me, I think nails it. I think she's the number 2 pick behind Netta easily.
Taran, just check the chat quickly because we got the mic situation again. But don't worry about it. It's okay. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that Cass is a no-brainer. Brent, how do you think Cass would do if we see her again?
Oh, I think she would do great. I really do. I mean, listen, she just got under somebody's skin and they wanted her out. And Cass isn't very good about hiding her intentions, and that may be something that would work against her. So somebody would quickly find out, hey, she wants me out, and I better get rid of her before she gets me. I think Maddie at one point thought that, Cass wants me out, so I better get her out, and then eventually she didn't get her out, but Cass was in danger there for a little while.
Her ass is grass, Brent.
Yes, I couldn't remember. Thank you. That was the phrase that she used. But I mean, like this is a no-brainer. Like, come on, she's coming back. You know that.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
And I think she would do well.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think Cass could definitely do well. She isn't, too threatening for people. So,
are you really going to be threatened by a woman who can never win a competition to save her life? I mean,
hey, if there's an all-star dad competition and Cass's dad comes back, then they better watch out. Okay, let's go to number 3 on the list, and this is we had a tie here. We had a tie, a tie on the female side. We had a tie on the male side as well. So we'll first start. We'll go in alphabetical order by first name. We'll start with this person. So I mean, to the average person, if you see number 3 on the LFC's list, finished in 12th place on Big Brother Canada 2, people might be like, wait, really? You're going to take a 12th place person and you're going to have them this high on the list. But if we look at the resume, 1 HOH, 1 Power Veto, nominated twice, and is infamous for shredding a bunch of letters, then, I think people might not be as surprised that we've got Ika Wong, or you guys have Ika Wong this high on your list. Taran, I think, what do you think about Ika? You think that, why do you think she'd get a call before some of these female winners we have? Because you had her pretty high on your list as well.
Yeah, I had her right up there. It's just like she is another person who has that classic moment. It's the letter shredding thing. Like, that's one of the things that people think about when they think about Big Brother Canada, and they want to remind people of that. They want to remind people of Big Brother Canada 2 and how amazing that was, and they want to show the clip, and they want to be like, hey, it's Ika. We brought her back. Watch her do her thing again. We're going to put her in another situation where she's, burning letters this time.
Okay, guys, hold on a sec. Breaking news. Can we say this? Maybe not yet. Oh my goodness. Great breaking news. He's back from his love tour, ladies and gentlemen. Alex Kidwell is gracing us with his presence. Alex, how are you?
I'm back from the dead. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
You look good, man.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome.
What happened? Were you
Awesome.
sleeping?
Yeah, well, I think this is what happens when you try to do too much in too short a time, right? Is 38-hour drive, unpacking, building furniture. I think I overwhelmed myself. I set an alarm, and I'm damned if I didn't hear it. So here we are. I'm sorry, guys. It's very unprofessional of me. I try not to be this guy, but
Alex, it's okay. They call you old reliable for a reason. So you know what? Don't worry.
That was a jinx. That name. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm so happy you're here. I was, to be honest, I was very shooken that I didn't get my dose of Alex Kidwell on this podcast.
I can't believe I let that happen. That's really unlike me.
You know what? It's okay. It's water under the bridge. You're back. We got you. Just to give you an update, Alex, and for those of you who are watching live and you're unsure where we're at, we are going through the top 8 females we think could be, you guys, the LFC thinks could be asked back for a Big Brother Canada season. Right now, we are on number 3. Number 1 was Netta Kalantar. Number 2 was Cassandra. Number 3, the first part of number 3 is Ika Wong. So we're at Ika right now, Alex, just to fill you in there. Okay, so let's just get this set back up a bit here. So Taran, you mentioned that about Ika there, and you are right. I think that is, if you just show that clip, I do think that people are going to you'd be like, oh yeah, okay, this makes sense. Alex Kidwell, let's put you on the spot. How do you think Ika would do if given a second shot?
I don't think she'd necessarily do great. I mean, she does make my list for sure. I think she's, Taran touched on it as I was getting in here. Definitely a notable personality. Definitely, has that moment with the letter shredding and the stuff where she, very fiery personality. Definitely someone that's going to bring entertainment to feeds and to a all-star type scenario. But I think she necessarily gets how to be good at this game. She's not the diplomat, Ika Wong. She's very much her own person. And she's gonna, kind of give her take on things. And I think maybe ultimately that's the kind of thing that is your downfall in this type of a game.
Brent, you were the highest on Ika. You had her number 1 on your list. Tell me why, and how do you think she'd do?
I mean, I just can't help but think of what an all-star season would be like without Ika Wong. I mean, the producers love her. It's clear they've asked her back to do a couple things. She's come back in the house with Gary. She's come back on and give her opinion on things. She was just somebody like Cassandra who could not control her mouth. And I love that in somebody that I want to watch on TV and somebody that I want to watch on the feeds. You don't want somebody who's going to come in and try to play a perfect game. You don't even necessarily want somebody who's going to come in and learn from their mistakes. And I don't think Ika would. I think she'd come back in and give it to him hard. I love it that Melissa and I had Ika 1 and 2 respectively, and Taran and Alex had her more like 4 and 8, which is a little bit of a disservice to her because I think she would I think she's the number 1 person that they call back if they want to do an all-star season, even more so than our collective number 1, Netta.
Okay, so there we go. That's Brent's take on it. Melissa, I want to hear what you think about Ika. Do you think she could, I don't know, Alex says she wasn't do so great, but I feel like Ika would be under the radar a little bit. Like people would just say, oh yeah, Ika, she was out early. We can just keep her around. And I also think she'd be kind of out for blood, Melissa.
I think she'd probably be out for blood, but I also think that they're gonna try and get her out right away. I think there's something's gonna happen. She's gonna not be able to keep her mouth shut, and she's just gonna be out the door probably right away. But it's so important to bring her back because that moment is just iconic. For BB Can, that moment has been shared so many times. It's still being shared on Reddit, the subreddit. People just keep posting the video being reminder, this happened 2 years ago or whatever they want to say. People love it and people still talk about it. It's a great moment. So they're definitely going to bring her back.
And not just the fact that moment happened and it was so well edited. It's that she played into the moment. She gave the producers what they wanted. She gave them the face. She gave them the voice. She gave them the, when they opened up the thing. I mean, I love the fact that she knew, I felt like she knew what was going on. And if she didn't know what was going on, when she saw the door come up, and she was thinking about it the whole time, the minute I do this, that door's going to come up. And sure enough, it did. And she was ready to call them out. Go to hell, Andrew, go to hell. I mean, come on. She's coming back. You know.
I believe it was F.U. Kenny. And
I'm trying to clean it up a little bit. I was trying to clean it up a little bit.
That's just so great when Ika's like, she's like punching she's like doing air punches towards like, the photos. I really love that.
And you know, remember that she's shredding the letters from their families, and of course you got Kenny there, and he's all boohooing, and it's Mumsy there boohooing with him. Like, yeah, it was beautiful to watch. And of course, remember, all of those people were in power, and they were getting ready to evict her, and they had the gall to get mad at her when they're getting ready to evict her for taking $5,000. I mean, come on. Yeah.
All right. Let's jump to the second half of this third place tie. And we are finally going to put a winner on this list. That's where the LFC had this person. She was the winner of Big Brother Canada 3. She had 2 HOH wins, 1 Power Veto win, and she was nominated 3 times. She's infamous for being a stoner, being a fan favorite, getting into a huge fight with Bruno, and having a big role on the sideshow. We've got Sarah Handlin here on this list. Alex Kidwell, Sarah was number 2 on your list, which again, I didn't vote, felt like this was an accurate spot for her. Talk to me a little bit about Sarah Handlin.
Yeah, I think the sideshow bump says a lot. You know, here's somebody that won in the season that the sideshow already existed, and they bumped her up to somebody else's spot. I think that pretty much indicates how they feel about her in a lot of ways. I think Sarah is someone that really represents what they're going for in terms of she brings a big target audience. I think there's a recognizable face from a recent season. She won. She was a fan favorite. She was liked on her, trajectory. She's someone that the fans helped during the course of, twists they were able to vote for, things like that. She's become even more recognizable in the fact that I think she's now writing for some Toronto papers and stuff like that. So she's certainly done nothing post game to, fall off the radar as far as that goes. I think Sarah is really, pretty much the type of person that you look at on a very short list in terms of who they would think to bring back if they were planning to do so.
Now, Taran, you infamously got into an argument with Brent over Sarah's game last year when you guys did your top 10 BB Can players podcast. I know that you are maybe not the highest on Sarah's game. You had her high on your list, though. How do you think Sarah would do if she were to play again?
All right. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I think that Sarah is positioned to do really well if she comes back. I think that, she has this persona of being very bad in competitions. She's not an overtly threatening, character necessarily, but I still don't think she's. I don't have faith in her decision making as a player, and so I think that she will probably play herself out of the game in around the mid area of the season.
I love it. I have to say, Sarah.
Brent, go ahead.
Sarah, if you're listening right now, I just want you to know that Taran, he acknowledges the fact that you won your season, and he's also acknowledging the fact that you're well positioned to do well in a coming season, and yet he's still dogging your play. So that tells you who's biased around here and who's not. Okay,
biased.
Mm-hmm, yeah. All right. No, I mean, look, this girl's coming back. She was somebody that she felt like she was the perpetual underdog that eventually got over the line, albeit with a lot of help from us. But nevertheless, that's Big Brother Canada, and she was willing to take all the help that they would give her. And I love the fact that my peers on this panel often say, like, she took all the help that they could give her, and she barely got over the line. But I mean, I think she was somebody that was easy for the audience to root for. And I don't necessarily think, as Taran agrees with me, that she would be targeted if she came back in another season. I think that there are some people who probably don't respect her game. I mean, obviously, there are people on this panel that don't respect her game. So I know there are people in the house that don't respect her game. And I think that she would do well if she came back. And she is a lock to be cast by the producers in an all-star season.
I'm like Sarah's best friend right now. I'm totally helping her out if she gets into an all-star.
All right, yeah.
It is true. I mean, that can only help her. But I think that Sarah gets a bad rap. I think that Sarah is a really strong player. I do understand.
You voted for her.
I did vote for her. Yeah, even though it didn't count, but I did vote for Sarah. I think socially, Sarah is one of the best players in the history of Big Brother Canada. I think that she did such a good job building relationships with every single person in the house. I think that she could do a great job again if she were on an all-star season. I mean, maybe people would see through that a little bit more this time, but I do genuinely think that I think part of the reason why she did such a good job of that was because I think she genuinely cared about each and every person on my cast. And I think that she's just a great person. That's what I think about her. I love Sarah. She's great. I do understand where you guys are coming from, though. Melissa, I want to get your take on Sarah Handlin. You had her at 8 on your list. Was that because of the sideshow, or was that for other reasons?
I just was thinking about it in terms of I was looking a lot of it at entertainment, and the fact that she already won, I think, was a hindrance to me thinking the producers would ask her back, just because there's no storyline there. It's kind of just can she defend her own title, rather than she's out for revenge, Netta's out for revenge, or so-and-so got voted out unfairly or something like that. And so I was just looking at it that way. I think she had a good social game during her season. I wasn't super impressed, but I don't think she was a terrible winner or anything. I just felt her story had kind of ended. I feel like she won the game.
Right.
That's kind of it. And so I was thinking in terms of who's going to come back and do something different, and who's going to come back and have a story.
And I do agree with that in a sense as well. I mean, and I think it's different for the general audience, but as a fan myself, we've seen the Sarah Handlin story, the underdog story. She won. Yeah, it's over. She did it. Good job. But I do agree with the majority here. Very likely she gets called back. And just a disclaimer, we did these with assuming that most people will go back. There are exceptions for people like Tom Plant, who just had a kid, or like myself. I've publicly said I don't want to go back and play this season. But for people on the sideshow, we're assuming that they would be freed from their duties to go back on the show. So that's why Sarah was so high on the general list, for anybody who was wondering there.
Also, Tim and Nikki.
And Tim and Nikki, that's the other thing. Yeah,
yeah,
so Tim and
I
Nikki,
didn't include them at all.
So Tim and Nikki were not included by the LFC just because it just would be logistically tough to get them back right after being on BB-Can 4 in terms of that stuff. So just for the sake of this, they kept it to Canada people only. Let's jump to number 5 on the list here from the LFC. And we've got somebody here who won 4 HOHs on her season. She didn't win a single power veto, but 4 HOHs. Very, very impressive. She won her season, some say by accident, on Big Brother Canada 1. She's infamous for her awkward win over Gary. It is Jillian McLaughlin. Alex Kidwell, talk to me about Jillian. How do you feel about her as a player?
Wait, excuse me, what? Jillian?
sorry. Yes, Jillian, not Topaz.
Mm-hmm.
Jillian, Alex Kidwell, Jillian.
Yeah, so, Jillian's an interesting case. Obviously, we've talked about, at least privately, Jordan, we've talked about the whole, her and Emmett did the Amazing Race Canada. I don't know exactly, I know that's another network, and I don't know kind of what logistics might be at play in terms of do you have obligations to one network, and would that keep you from doing something with another network? I think that's really the only issue at play, though, because ultimately Jillian is your first winner, and to have an all-star season without your first winner, it just feels wrong. I mean, to see Big Brother All-Star, I mean, granted, Eddie McGee doesn't play, but that's a different game. To see Big Brother All-Stars without Will, to see Survivor All-Stars without Rich, it's just, to me, it's fundamentally something that you wouldn't do. So I think, I mean, for me, honestly, I think all the winners need to be involved in some way. I mean, there's only 4 seasons. You got 5 winners in those 4 seasons. And personally, I see a scenario where you need to involve them. Those are the recognizable faces of your franchise. And yeah, I think Jillian, even though she's probably the least dynamic winner nonetheless, the first one. That's something that just is.
Brent, you had Jillian about the same where everyone had Jillian, but you mentioned earlier that you think Netta could be hurt in terms of being called because of her connection to John. Do you think that Jillian might not get a call because Emmett gets a call?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to not spoil my boys list, but I did sort of think about it in terms of who would they ask back, and I don't think that they would necessarily ask their partner back, especially if they're continuing in a relationship with them post-show. So, I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it right now. I have Jillian on my list at number 7. I don't have Emmett on my list. I don't think. Yeah, I had him on my list at one point, and I took him off because I put Jillian on my list. So there you go. That answers your question. I think that, as Alex said, that Jillian's an interesting case because she's somebody who didn't necessarily, like, she's the antithesis of Sarah Handlin. She didn't necessarily get along well with people. People didn't really like Jillian all that well. Even the people that voted for her more voted for her because they didn't want Gary to win, or they voted for her more out of respect rather than like. So her social game seems to be lacking, but her game with the capital G seems to be there. I mean, she's willing to make moves. She's willing to win competitions. She's able to win them, and she doesn't really take much muck from anybody. So I'd love to see what she does in an all-star season.
Taran, do you think that, Jillian's winning track record, do you think that puts a bigger target on her back, or do you think that kind of scares people into saying, hey, like, let's not go after Jillian early on because, I don't want her coming after me?
I think Jillian's probably fine. I think that she is not a necessarily respected figure in the same way that Dr. Will or that Richard Hatch were. I think that, she... I think that she won because of the Topaz thing, and I think that people recognize that, and they're probably not going to be scared of her because of it.
Melissa, what about you? What do you think about Jillian?
Yeah, I think that I agree with Taran because I had known about the Topaz thing before I watched BB Can 1 because I watched BB Can 2 first and then went back and watched BB Can 1, and I already knew about all the drama, so I wasn't thinking like, oh, let me watch her game to see how good she is. Like, I already knew that she wasn't supposed to be the winner, so I was just not even like worried about it. So I think that people just wouldn't really be worried about her and be like, she's not a real winner or something. But I do agree that I think it's really I think it's important for the producers to bring back like the first winner. So I definitely think she would be back. I just don't know how well she'd do.
And I think she, like Sarah Handlin, like I know that Melissa alluded to the fact that maybe there's no story with the winner because they've already won, but I do think there's a story with both Sarah Handlin. Sarah Handlin, I think that she can say, like, look, I want to come back to prove that I actually deserve to be the winner, that I didn't need all this help from anybody else, because a lot of people don't respect my game. Likewise with Jillian, I think it's easy for her to come back and say, look, a lot of people don't even think that I legitimately won my season. I want to come back and show them that I am the queen of this bitch, and I'm here to show it to you. So I think there's a path for both of them.
Okay, so that's so Jillian comes in at number 5 on the LFC's list of potential all-stars if BB Can 5 is an all-star season. Let's jump to number 6 on the list, and this person came in 11th place. Yes, of course. This person came in 11th place on Big Brother Canada 3. They won HOH. She won HOH 0 times. She won the Power Veto 1 time. She was nominated 3 times. Every single time she was eligible to be nominated, she was nominated. She's infamous for voting out her showmates and for coming back into the house and messing a lot of things up. Love her or hate her, you have a reaction when you hear her name. It is Cindy with an S. So Cindy comes in at number 6 on the LFC's list. Brent, do you think Cindy's a good player?
No, she's a freaking terrible player. I mean, come on, let's be honest.
I thought, okay. I wasn't sure what your take was on that.
No, I had her number 4. Alex had her number 7. Melissa had her at number 6, and Taran had her at number 6. So we were pretty consistent on this one. I mean, like, she's definitely like a mid-tier all-star, somebody that you want to have come back. I think she's helped by the fact that she's not another white female, so there's that to her. Also, the fact that she can't keep her mouth shut. She's like Cass. She's going to tell you what she thinks, and you know what? She's a terrible player. And you have to have these what the F players in the house. I mean, I love seeing them on the show because good players like Netta, like other people have to. It's so funny. I'm like, good players like Netta, like other people. There are other people who are good besides Netta, but she just comes to mind. It's interesting having to navigate with people like this who don't necessarily know what's in their best interest. You sort of have to hold their hands and tell them, look, I know you don't want to do this, but you need to do this. And I think that it would be interesting seeing her come back. And do I think that she would learn from her mistakes? No. I think she would make the same mistakes and she would probably be out pre-jury, but I know that they would want to have her back.
Alex, we've got some people in the chat saying, really? Cindy? Why have Cindy this high on your list?
Well, I think here's the thing about Cindy is that, you touched on it. If she elicits a reaction, whether you're a fan of her or not, she was someone that really ate up a lot of screen time while she was there. And I think with good reason, is that she really was, some people are saying it with an S, and it's just like, oh God, this person. And then other people found it funny, and, but whatever you thought about it, it definitely is memorable. It elicited an emotional response of some kind from you probably. And in addition, I mean, her time in the house was a whirlwind. It was short, but it was very eventful. I mean, she made things happen throughout the time she was in the house, and maybe she was shooting herself in both feet, but she was, loading up the gun and continually firing. So that in and of itself is something. I think when you're looking at an all-star or potential all-star cast, certainly, like Brent said, you're going to need those people in there. But I think more than that, we just look at what we have available, and it's 4 seasons of people. And ultimately, with both sides, I think male and female, there's not like an overwhelming amount of strategic, really, intelligent, game playing entities. And of course, you're going to have a mix. And I think Cindy definitely falls in the category of someone who is captivating and charismatic, and people will remember, even if not necessarily someone that's remembered for being great at the game itself.
All right. So, Melissa, I want to get your take on Cindy. What do you think about Cindy? And what do you think Cindy needs to do better next time?
What she needs to do better, I think she needs to not, like you said, it was like when her time in the house was like a whirlwind. And I feel like if she tones that down and kind of just lays low, I think that she could go far, because people would be like, who is she? Let's forget about her. But I mean, I think she'd be brought back because she was so like entertaining to watch. Like, when she came back into the house and like caused all that like drama, she really stirred things up. And I thought it was great. And I was totally entertained. And I thought it was so fun to watch. And I think that she had the potential to really do some damage if she stayed longer. I mean, she left, but it would be fun to see what she could potentially do if she came back for an all-star season.
Jordan, I just want to say really quickly, you know how Rob always gets mad at people on Survivor or any reality show because they come off the show and they're like, well, I'm the winner. I really won because I won at life. I feel like Cindy is this person because she didn't care that she didn't win. She didn't care that she didn't get to the end. She came in the house the second time around to screw things up, and she didn't care what she was going to let anything get in her way. I mean, this is just like a crazy person to have in the house. And I feel like that, I mean, how quickly we forget the lie after you were evicted. She's telling people, she's behaving like she voted to keep you. And while at the same time, 4 people in her alliance all know that she's lying and she doesn't think that they're going to give her up. And she's so stupid, but she's going to come back. So. Yeah,
Taran, give me your thoughts on Cindy, because I mean, I agree with a lot of this. I think despite my biases with Cindy in terms of my relationship with her, Cindy is really good TV, and I do think that this is kind of a no-brainer. I think you have to have if you're calling people, and this is the roster of everyone you've got available. I think that Cindy definitely is one of the first people that I would call. What's your take on that?
I think that Cindy actually may not be as terrible as her gameplay may indicate. I think that a large part of her downfall was that she came back with terrible instructions and she just followed those instructions to a T to like her entire detriment. I think that if she comes into an all-star season, she is not going to be looked at as a threat in any way. I think she's threatening on a new person season because she's so aggressive. But to all-stars, it's just going to be like, oh, she's so cute over there.
Right? Yeah,
they're just going to let her.
Yeah.
They're going to let her do her thing. She's going to run around. She's not going to win the game, but I think she'll get far. I think it's very possible that she could get far if she's not like first out just because of whatever.
Totally. I do think that a lot of people underestimate her. I think that people are going to say, oh, Cindy, she sucks. We don't need to vote her out. But I think she's got some abilities. I don't think Cindy is as terrible as we're making her out to be.
For the record, I'm not saying they're going to underestimate her. I'm saying that they're going to estimate her properly and leave her until the end.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. I think, go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
Just, in the grand scheme of, is Cindy a memorable character? I think for me, memorable characters are someone who I still remember how and, the context of how they entered the house and what they were saying the first time. And Cindy is certainly on that list where she comes in and says to Zach, my name's Cindy with an S. He's like, oh, so it's like SINDY. Oh, you can spell. Like, that was fantastic. I think that
who knew that Alex Kibble had a Zach Olynyk impression? That was great. Okay, let's jump to number 7 on the list. This is somebody who, I think if we would have done this after season 2, I would have said, okay, I could see this person being on. But we are down to number 7, so I understand it. She came in 4th place on Big Brother Canada 1. She had 0 HOH wins. She had 0 POV wins. She was nominated 4 times. It is Tala Rajai. So Tala comes in at number 7. I think Tala is a great character. Taran, how'd you feel about Tala?
Yeah, I just think at this point we've sort of run into the people where, like, I think, as you said, like, I think she would have been probably a guaranteed spot if they had done it sooner. I think people are probably forgetting about Tala the further along we go on. But I do think she was so wacky and she was so goofy and she's such a character that if you look at the rest of the cast, I feel like they need more of the levity that she brings. And I think, again, she's another person that has that one of those moments where she gets so frustrated at the competition that they could play that clip and they could say, wasn't this great? Wasn't this great when we had this funny moment? And they love doing that. So I think she's probably just scraping in toward the end here.
19199999. Alex can.
I did it right. I did it 4 times.
Oh my God! I knew it after she was done. It was so good. Talking with Tala. Tala had some good moments fighting with Gary. Alex, is there any scenario, I could see production giving Tala a call, but is there any scenario if Tala does get the phone call that Tala would end up winning an all-star season like this?
Tala, I don't think so, but I don't think that necessarily everyone's in there to win, as we kind of talked about. I don't think we have like a full field of potential winners, even, from past casts necessarily. And I think, again, Tala kind of falls in the conversation of people that are there to bring something. If you can't bring great TV, or if you can't bring great strategy, bring great TV. You need people that are bringing something to the table. No one can be cast on this kind of a season that's not pulling their weight. And at the very least, Tala pulls her weight in the confessionals, in kind of these like very quirky, just offbeat moments that you get. I still, with Tala, for me, what comes to mind is like Tom Plant trying to tell her how to vote and how she needs to, act if she wants to be safe. And she's like, oh yeah, okay. And in the diary room, she's like, what? Who is this guy? Like, it's just really kind of flippant about the whole thing, and then ends up outlasting him in the game anyway. So to me, that's Tala. I think she's gonna bring like a lighthearted kind of nature to a super competitive environment, and that would be fun, I think, to have that kind of an X factor in the mix.
She's just the thing I love about her too is I think with some people you might think, oh, that can't be really them, like they're putting on a show. That's Tala. Like, Tala is like that in real life. I mean, I haven't hung out with Tala a lot, but when I have hung out with Tala, that's exactly what she's like, and she's really fun to be around. And I think it would be great to see her again. Melissa, you have anything you want to add on Tala?
I think she definitely would bring the entertainment and more of the lighthearted, the jokes, like, just the bursts of humor. And I think that they do need that. In looking at like our cast list so far, I definitely think that they do need some sort of humor in there. And so I mean, the reason I didn't include her on my list was I just forgot about her. So I kind of think that that's like a possibility that we're kind of getting far removed from season 1, that people just like are kind of forgetting about those characters unless they're like still involved in the show or still on reality TV or whatever. But like now thinking back on it, I'm like, yeah, she'd be a good addition. So yeah, it wasn't intentional they left her off, but I also do think that there's like other fun characters that could have been on instead of her.
Yeah,
so.
Well, like, I mean, she barely made my list in number 8. Taran also had number 8. Alex had her number 6, and you had her unranked. So, I mean, it's not a far cry to have her off your list. I mean, I feel like every season needs one of these people. I mean, she's like the Candace or the Danielle of Heroes versus Villains, where it's just like, how the hell did they get on? Like, I mean, like what? Like, I mean, this, she's the person with the dodo music in the background in every confessional. I mean, you need people like this on the season who are just fun TV, who give the show's producers what they want in the diary room on the show. And I mean, look, if she wins the game, it's a total bonus. I still think that she maybe had I take that back. I was going to say she had a shot to win. She shouldn't have been evicted in 4th place in Big Brother 1. Emmett and Jillian were idiots for not taking her to the final 3. So she should have at least gotten to the final 3 in Big Brother 1 over Gary, but they did it. And so she was out in 4th place. And I don't think anybody would be threatened by her if she came back. So I think she would probably end up in a very similar position, actually.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just to add to, again, this is who the LFC thinks production would pick. And I think another reason we can say production might want Tala. We've seen her on the sideshow, I believe, a few times. She's actually she went in the house on BB Can too. So I think that production really likes her a lot. And I do agree with your guys' assessment of putting her near the bottom of your list here. Let's jump to number 8 on the list.
Can I say one more thing?
Go ahead, Melissa.
Not necessarily about talent, but like ranking the girls was so hard. I had so many extra girls that I wanted to include, whereas like with the guys, I couldn't even fill my list. I had to like find someone else for my last spot. Whereas the girls, it was like, I want more. I have like so many, and I was taking some out and moving them around. So it was really tough competition for the girls this year.
And dudes, you just wait for who just made it at the bottom of Melissa's list. You just wait on the male side. Okay, number 8. For the females, just barely making the cut here. She came in 4th place on Big Brother Canada 3. She won 3 HOHs, 0 POVs, and was nominated 6 times. She is infamous for going from the pawn to the queen bee, and for getting superpowers. It is Brittany Blair. So Brittany Blair comes in at number 8 on the LFC's lists. Alex, I think Queen Bee would go pretty far again, because I think that people like Sarah Handlin, I don't think people give Brittany a lot of credit. How do you think she'd do if she were to come back?
I don't necessarily think Brittany would do particularly well unless she gets a lot more kind of gifts from production. I think, Brittany's game wasn't good, and I don't think she's been led to believe anything but that it was good. I mean, she was reinforced in all her bad decision making throughout the course of a lot of those twists. So I think Brittany, unfortunately, is going to come into a game thinking she knows very much about something she actually doesn't know much about at all. So I don't have high expectations for her. That being said, I'm surprised. I mean, I had Brittany the highest on my list. I think she's a lock. I mean, I think if you see the way she was so prominently featured in that season, the way that, the fans kept voting for her, I think regardless of what you think about Brittany, the player, I think you have to respect, Brittany, the character, and the following that she seemed to have during the course of the season, and the way she was presented in a very sympathetic and charismatic light, even though I think, at least from my perspective, many of those diary rooms seemed very scripted and forced, and they were trying to paint her as something that I don't even necessarily think that she wanted or necessarily agrees is, within her character. But yeah, this kind of whole Queen Bee persona, I think really did, become a very big thing during the course of that, of your season, Jordan. And I would be stunned if they did cast something like this and didn't include her.
Brent, you were a big fan of Queen Bee during BB
Big fan.
Yeah. Then why did you leave her off your list?
Because this is so funny. This is the epitome of the 4 of us trying to channel other people. Because the 2 people on this panel who really didn't like Brittany at all, who really felt like she was handed everything and they didn't understand why she was popular, they put her on the list. Taran and Alex both ranked her 5 and 7. Me and Melissa, who love Brittany, at least I do, and I think Melissa does, we didn't have her on our list. So even though I love Brittany, I don't think that she's necessarily a lock to come back. And I felt like there were other people that were ahead of her. It kind of goes back to a little bit of what happened with Jillian and Emmett for me, in that I don't think they would cast Sarah and Brittany on the same season, and I really do think Sarah's a lock. So I don't know that they're going to put them back in the house as a dynamic duo again, especially if Cindy's there. So, you have to look. I was looking at my list as a whole, not here are the top 8 people or the top 10 people who I think production would call. I'm trying to make a cast. And I don't think that they would call her because they're calling 2 of the people that she worked closely with during Big Brother Canada 3. So that's my explanation.
Melissa, you're not.
In my defense, I have multiple dynamic duos on my list.
Yeah, we could cast an entire season of like, I was looking at it at the end, and like you could do a season with a twist of like, pairing people up. But go ahead, Melissa.
That would actually be
really cool.
A really fun season. That might be.
We can talk about it once we reveal everybody, because I have everybody paired up already. I just want you to know.
That's a little too close to Big Brother 13 for me.
Yeah. I love that season. Go ahead.
Melissa, you're nodding your head. You agree with Brent.
Yeah, I agree with Brent. And I think that in terms of the whole like not wanting to cast duos, I feel like Brittany and Sarah are very different from like John and Netta and also Emmett and Jillian, because Brittany and Sarah, they were like really good friends. Like I don't know if there's been any drama since then, but I don't think there has. But so they would come back in and want to work together again. And so there is an automatic duo just like right in the house. Whereas like John and Netta, there's a story there because it's like they're exes now, and like that dynamic is going to be totally different than it was the first time around. And also Emmett and Jillian were on The Amazing Race together, and I didn't watch the whole season, but I did see clips where they were just like fighting the whole time. So I feel like it'd be a very interesting thing to see them kind of butt heads if they were in the house together. But I feel like putting two people in who are definitely going to work together and everything's like great between them isn't as exciting.
Taran, they did that on BB7 with my boy Dr. Will and Mike Boogie. Do you think BB Can would go down a similar route?
I do. I don't think we need to say that they wouldn't bring back, allies or pairs or anything like that. I mean, in the original All-Star season, we basically had like, 2/3 of the Sov 6 alliance, four people who are like already in an alliance come into the house together, plus Dr. Will and Mike Boogie, plus some other people who had been allies in previous seasons. I don't think they're going to shy away from that at all. I think if anything, they probably like that.
And lest we forget, even when they were allied and working together, Brittany still evicted Willow, even though Sarah totally didn't want her to. So
to be fair, they both did a little bit.
Just because like they're totally, on the same page doesn't mean that Brittany won't decide that a move for her game is better than something else. So, we've seen this in play before. I don't think it's a done deal at all that they'd fall into lockstep together.
I just think that
Willow. Poor Willow. Go ahead.
Just really quickly, I was going to say, well, look, I think I mean, you guys can say what you want. I know there are people who say, "Oh, the producers don't care who wins the game." Sarah Handlin is the face of the franchise. I think they wanted her to at least not be out quickly. And if you put her in the house with Cindy with an S, with Brittany Blair, I mean, you're just putting like the biggest target on her, and they're going to try and get her.
I disagree. I think you're giving her people that are there to help her. That's like free, and that's like production saying, "Here you go, Sarah. Here's some friends." Like I feel like that it's the opposite. I think if she's by herself, I think then people say, "Ooh, Sarah Handlin, she's an easy target. She needed the sideshow. I want to get rid of her." You know what I mean?
All right.
I can see both arguments.
I can see both.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, that's 1 to 8. So that's the entire female side. You guys did cast one alternate player. This player, I'm just trying to look here quickly. She was on she was on 2 lists.
No, she was on 3.
3 lists. Okay, that's right. She was on 3 lists. She was not on Brent's list. This is somebody who I think is great TV. This is someone who I would want to cast if I was the producers. She came in 12th place on Big Brother Canada 4. She had 2 HOH wins, 2 POV wins, was nominated twice and had to live in a secret room. It is Levita Adams. So Levita comes in as the female alternate for the LFC, someone who is very polarizing. Taran, talk to me about Levita.
I think that I think that she's probably somebody that they would want on the cast. If she's not on it, it's just because there are already too many other good people on there. But I think she could easily jump in there because she is like she's like a Devin, right? Like she went crazy in the house. She was dynamic the entire time that she was there. The whole front half of that of season 4 was just loaded with Levita being in power, not being in power. It was all focusing around Levita because she was always causing some sort of drama or circumstances that caused a bunch of other stuff to happen. And then on top of all of that, she was intricately involved in their big twist that they promoted a lot, and like, oh man, she was in the secret room. And I just feel like she, despite the fact that she went out fairly early, I think that she is somebody that they would easily look to as like, hey, she was great TV while she was in there. Why don't we bring her back?
Brent, why did you leave her off?
I mean, I guess I just don't remember her as fondly as Taran does. I mean, I don't remember her being that crazy. I mean, she was a little bit nuts, but I mean, she was more of a footnote in a season filled with lots of crazy people. So I don't necessarily think that they would need her back. And I think there are other people that are already filling her spot, as in the crazy people on the cast that you want to have just to like have a good time and have good feeds. I don't know. And I think this is probably why she would be an alternate. I think she was probably an alternate largely on the strength of me not voting for her. I think everybody else probably would cast her, but I didn't really love Levita on season 4, and I don't think the producers would necessarily love her either. But that may be my bias showing, and I'll totally cop to that.
Yeah, I would say to that. I mean, the first month of the game, I kind of felt like it was the Levita show. Like she was HOH or she was out the door. Like that's pretty much how it was for the first month. And I think if you add a wild card like that into the house who is good at competitions, I think maybe the producers are going to say, hey, look, here's Levita. She's unique. She brings all this to the table. She's got a story arc. Why not have her back?
I'm still trying to remember how she survived week 2 when she was nominated with Shari.
Yeah,
Does anybody remember?
I don't remember how that.
Like she should have been gone right then.
Alex, what happened?
Sure, you know, at that point in time, you still have the biggest group trying to play the middle, and they're like wanting to keep the most polarizing options on both sides.
Oh yeah, remember when we had a middle? That was so fun.
The mighty middle
alliance, removing the less obvious target in Shari.
They felt like they could control Levita more than they could.
Right. I remember. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that back. I wrote the middle. I miss you.
Oh, the middle. Melissa, any final thoughts on Levita?
Yeah, I thought every time Levita was there, it was just like entertaining, drama-filled, just craziness. And I felt like the whole show was centered around her for the first month. And I feel like she would be one of those people to just go in there and shake things up again. And she stirs the pot. And I think that's fun. And I think that's also something that the producers will be looking for.
Okay, I actually have to go take a quick break, but before I go do that, or while I go do that, let's get started on some of the honorable mention females. You guys each presented some people that didn't make the cut, so you guys each have some a female player that didn't make the final list that you guys wanted to talk about. Alex Kidwell, let's start with you. I'll be right back.
All right, so I feel pretty good about this list, obviously, because my top 9 ended up being our 8+ alternates. So I'm looking good, but I'm gonna go ahead and make my honorable mention my number 10, and that would be Kelsey Faith, season 4 runner-up. I think Kelsey is somebody that was dynamic on her time on the show. I think, you know, ultimately when I was going through this, I was looking at, you know, who was entertaining, who was charismatic, and I felt like ultimately I left a lot of like so-called villains, I guess, off the list. I feel like for the most part, I cast a lot of fan favorites and just kind of counted on them to butt heads and create new, you know, hero-villain kind of storyline dynamics. But as far as Kelsey's concerned, here's someone that really butted heads with Levita early and often. Here's someone that really, you know, survived to the end of the game despite the seemingly horrendous social games she had at times, who was definitely not like a fan favorite throughout the course of her season, was a part of a showmance that I think, you know, by and large was pretty universally disliked within the fan community. But Kelsey was definitely, to me, a captivating character. She's a real competitive streak. She definitely, you know, was someone who wanted to go in there and play the game and fight and not give up. And I think she kind of represents to me just an element that is always kind of good in this type of a season. She's, you know, she's going to fight and she's going to try hard. And she's capable. I think she's more capable than a lot of us are, you know, willing to give her credit for in hindsight following that season. I mean, we went into that finale, at least I did think Kelsey was going to be our winner. So I think there's, you know, a lot of, you know, compelling stuff with Kelsey if she were to come back. Could she overcome, you know, whatever it was that kept her from, you know, owning the things that people wanted to see her do at the end of the game there?
I feel like we're maybe overrating her, or at least you're overrating her a little bit there. Like I think she was probably a long way off from winning that game, considering she was evicted once, and then she should have won that final jury vote, given the jury's temperature with the brothers ahead of time. They didn't want to give it to the brothers, but they didn't have to. But Kelsey essentially made them. So I think she has a lot of growing to do if she wants to come back and do better on a return trip. But I do think she's compelling enough that I could see the producers maybe picking her, and I wouldn't be totally like floored. I wouldn't be like, I don't want to see her if she did come on again. So I'm all right with the pick.
I mean, I don't know. The producers always cast one person. They're not where I'm always like, why did you cast this person? Like, why did you put them on? And I'm thinking that Kelsey might actually be this person. So she didn't make the list, so I was pleased with that. But she's certainly capable. I mean, look, no tea, no shade, but being a flight attendant is not an easy job. You have to be a pretty smart person to get that job. And she proved that during those final competitions there at the end when it was her against the world and she still managed to win. So she's capable. I don't know that they would necessarily need her back, although she is definitely a flirt, and I don't know what her current circumstances are, but she definitely doesn't mind, spreading her love.
Well, I will say, and I don't know what has been said yet about Kelsey at this point, but I will say that she is in a relationship with one of the PAX bros, Phil Pockette. So I think, spoiler alert for those of you who did not know. So they're dating now. I think that's kind of an interesting
dating, schmating. She'd go back for the money in a heartbeat.
No, I think she would, but I'm just saying, I think that adds an interesting dynamic. I think if you put Kelsey there, I think that she showed she's got some villainous qualities. Can't have enough villains on a season. I think Kelsey brings that to the table. That's why I think Kelsey is somebody who, the more I've thought about it, I think that if I was making my rankings, I think I might have put her in there in that top 8.
I wish that she would own her villainous-esque self a little bit more.
I think if Kelsey owned it more, I think production would be like instantly.
Oh, I'd love her.
Production would give her a call. Yeah, production would call her up. They'd be like, "Yeah, you're on the season for sure." Melissa, did you add anything? Taran, you guys?
Yeah, Melissa hasn't said anything yet.
Yeah,
Melissa, go ahead on Kelsey.
I look back on Kelsey fondly. At the time, I didn't like her, but now I look back on her and I'm like, she's not so bad. I like her, But at the time, I really didn't. But I also think that if she did own being a villain, I feel like I would love her, because there was that one point when she was asked the question, are these guys in your alliance, were you going to turn on them or whatever they asked? And she was like, no, they're really my friends. And it was like, if she had just said no, I was playing them the whole time.
Yes.
It was like, I was waiting for her to say that, and then it was like, oh, they're my friends. No, that's not what we want to hear. And I think there's a possibility that she could have just been trying to say what she thought everyone wanted to hear, which was like, no, I'm a nice person. I like everybody. We were actually friends. I just wish she had added different
she definitely miscalculated there, because she thought that she thought by saying that she might actually lose Raul and the boy with the hair. What was his name?
Jared.
Thank you.
Jared.
She thought that
Jared.
She thought that she might lose their votes if she said something like that. But in hindsight, they were never going to vote for anybody else but her. She needed to get 3 more votes, and she needed to own up to that, or at least say that to the jury.
Yeah, and the other thing too with Kelsey was they had that final the plea to Canada, because Canada had a jury vote last year that Ramsey cast, and her plea to Canada was that she played a nice and honest game. And I was like, Kelsey, just own up that you're a villain and that you lied and backstabbed all these people. If she did that, and again, maybe this is because that's what she thought. Okay, this is what Canada wants to see. But I would hope that if Kelsey has seen her season and saw, hey, the fans want to see you go and be evil, then maybe she changed her approach.
She's one step removed from a Disney villainess. I mean, she could be that good. And
she looks like a Disney villainess.
She doesn't realize it. It would be so freaking amazing.
And hey, to her credit, changing from Jared to Phil, I feel like maybe she's already made that transition.
Is that saying that Jared is good and Phil is?
Well, I feel like Jared was the knight, right? And Phil was the cutthroat assassin.
That's right. I'm the white knight. Terrence got it. I like Terrence's opinion.
And I feel like Phil is a villainous character. If she's with Phil, then she's gonna start either she's understood that part of herself and she's sharing that with Phil, or maybe he's gonna help her recognize that side of herself.
Yeah,
so
he's more of a winking devil. I don't know if he's a villain. He's more of a
Okay, well, enough of this Jared and Phil debate. We can save that for another podcast.
That's true.
Let's jump to the next honorable mention, because we got a long way to go. Melissa, let's go to you. Who is your female honorable mention?
It was so hard to decide, because I at one point was thinking Heather. At one point I was thinking Naya, but I had to go with Sabrina, because she's an iconic Big Brother character. I mean, she has those lines that people still quote on the subreddit and on Twitter everywhere. Oh, you want good TV? That's that's so iconic. She's great. I think that she would be so entertaining, and every moment with her on screen was just like hilarious, if maybe unintentionally on her part, but it was really funny and really great to watch. And I think that, you know, she would just bring so much to the series. And I don't know. I just wish she had made the list.
I was surprised that Sabrina didn't make the LFC final 8 list. Taran, why did Sabrina not make it for you?
I'm just not sure that I think that as a character, she's probably somebody that they would think about having back. I don't know if realistically she's able to or willing to, or if they're able or willing to ask her. So I'm not sure that she can realistically be involved, but I do think that she's probably somebody that they would have considered if the logistics were there.
I seem to recall production really not liking her. Like, she was really a handful to deal with on the feeds. Like, she was always asking for things.
Oh, she was.
That's I'm not off base on this, right?
No, she was. Yeah, there was that. She claimed Ica pushed her on the stairs, and then like even though she just like walked by her like this, and then she like was crying, and, like kept pushing on the DR button, and who knows what we didn't see. I mean, I don't know.
You have to hire an intern just to be her handler. So as long as we're willing to, allocate a budget for this. Then.
I will say though, I think that the potential stress that production would have to go through will be worth it to get Sabrina. I just don't know, Brent, if Sabrina would want to go play again, because she went through a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think once you've got the bug, it's always there. I mean, you're a big man for being able to say, hey, even if they called, I wouldn't go back. But, I mean, it gets an opportunity to go on TV and, get some fame and win $100,000 or whatever the hell they're offering this year. I mean, I don't know. They could offer more for an All-Star season. We can always dream. Yeah, I mean, look, money is a overriding factor for a lot of people, especially people that have made it to the end of the game, like Sabrina made it to the final 3. So I feel like that she might come back if given the opportunity. Here's the thing. I didn't include her on my list because I feel like there are elements to Sabrina's personality that are present in other people that we currently have in our cast. I just don't feel like
in our
anything.
Cast?
Yes, thank you. I feel like that. Is that what I said? Did I say that?
No, I had to jump.
It was a terrible joke, Brent.
Did somebody somebody said that recently? Where was that at? Like, that was on a podcast, right? Somebody said that?
I can't remember.
Okay,
I don't know.
Fine.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
It's okay. Anyways, I think that she doesn't have a lot to offer that's not already present in people that we have on the show.
Shannon in the chat says, "Go home to your dog." Do you remember when?
God,
that was so funny.
Good times. This may be a little bit of recency bias. Like if she was on 4 and
she was on 4. Yeah, I agree.
And Cass was on 2. Yeah. So I don't know. Well,
if I'm casting the All-Star season, I'm putting Sabrina there. Again, you get a reaction from her, love her or hate her. Very, very good TV. As she said herself once. Let's jump to somebody else. Let's go to Brent Walgamot. Brent, who do you got as your honorable mention female?
I have somebody who was number 6 on my list and somehow did not make the cut. In fact, I'm looking and nobody else even has her on their list at all. So go to hell, all of you. She was amazing on season 2. We voted her into the house, or at least Canada did. She was in the secret room. She found the secret veto. Even when Queen Netta went up to the flowers that magically appeared and looked around in them, she didn't find the clue. But guess who did? The person who is my honorable mention, and that's Allison White. And she is here because I think that you guys are making a mistake by not including her on your list. She was amazing in Big Brother Canada 2. I can't believe that this is the same person who was in the room, who was probably an afterthought when they first cast her and Nate and that drag queen that they thought was going to get cast. And then she comes in because the fans want her. They put her into the season right after they come back from an HOH competition. She's given immunity for the first week. Yes. But she has to say a lie to these people. She can't tell them about the war room. She can't tell them she's been watching them. So even though she knows who all of these people are, she has to pretend that she has never seen any of them before and that she was just dropped into the house right in front of them, which of course was a total lie. And none of them ever suspected a thing. Add to that the fact that she made it back to the war room by finding the secret veto, wasn't afraid to use it. Of course, made a terrible move by actually believing John and Netta that they were going to hold up their end of the deal. And she did not vote to evict Adele like she should have after she used the secret veto. Nevertheless, she was ballsy. She wasn't afraid to compete. She wasn't afraid to, as I say, spread her love with Andrew Gordon. And I think that she would be a ball of fire if she came back in an all-star season.
Now, I love Allison White to death. Alex Kidwell, I know you're a big Allie Dub fan as well, but you did not have her on your list. Why don't you think production would call her?
Yeah, I think Allison's a great example of someone who, if you give me the choice to cast, I was sure I would include her. I like Allison a lot, but I just think from a production standpoint, Allison's game is a case of kind of squandered potential, unfortunately. I think what she did to get into the house was, really great. I thought she was fantastic in that war room scenario. She really made Nate and Scott look like much less appealing options to big fans, so much so that I remember just as a cat, at the time, I'm a fan. I'm not even podcasting. And I went so far as to use VPNs and forgery and stuff to convince the web I was living in Ontario just so I could help get her into the house. That's how much I cared about seeing Allison White get into the house. And I was willing to commit federal perjury or so. I don't know. Anyways, to me, it was really kind of disappointing then to see her get in there with, no information. She didn't have audio, but she certainly had video, and she knew enough to know that Andrew is clearly seemingly, kind of a nucleus of a power group. And rather than, feeling her way out around the outsides and finding, the group that she needed to find, her immediate reaction is to go just kind of cozy up to the guy who seems to be in control. And I think that's something none of us expected from a super fan. That's something we all expect from Jordan Lloyd.
It happens sometimes. Those showmances, man, the super fans. I don't know. I don't know what it is, Alex Kidwell, but it does happen.
I know, but she just it seemed like she made a beeline for the guy more out of safety and a need to feel protected within the game. And it's not what I was expecting from someone in there with a Shield t-shirt on, I guess. I was expecting someone who was going to want to play their own game, stand on their own 2 feet, more subvert, make their own alliances. And she seemed very content to let Andrew play her game for her until it was not working out so well anymore. And then, yeah, as we've alluded to, she gets this great power. She's able to find this thing, and then she completely misplays it. So I think ultimately with Allison, it's a shame because I think the expectations were set really high in the war room, maybe so much so that she couldn't possibly deliver on it. But the ultimate taste that I think is left in the mouth is somewhat bitter.
All right. Melissa, first, is Alex in trouble with the authorities? You're a lawyer. Can you defend him in court?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
We'll see.
Anything you want to add on? Yeah, talk to me about Allison.
Yeah, I agree with Alex completely because I never was the biggest fan of hers, but I definitely wasn't a fan after she went and just went straight to, Andrew. I was kind of just okay, that's lame and boring and I don't want to watch this. I just feel weird it's gross. I'm not into it. No offense to everybody involved, but I just wasn't into it. And I just felt okay, well, that's a lost cause. Let's move on to the next person. And so I just wasn't a huge fan when the show was going on. So I don't know. And I kind of forgot about her. So I also think that the producers might not cast her.
I don't know if you could forget about her. I mean, who can forget her and John in the disco room trying to drink and they had
best task ever.
That is great.
That was a good task. But I forgot that she was the one who did it.
Yeah.
I remember John, and so whenever I talk about it, I'm that one thing for BB Can where they had to drink and John did it, and I just don't remember the girl. So
there's definitely a clip, and I'm sure the chat room can refresh my memory, but where she starts to slur her words and she
it's so good. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. It's so good. Taran, talk to me about Allison a little bit here. Well,
you love Allison.
Let's wrap things up. Yeah, you like Allison.
This is big. I don't understand why you guys aren't talking about this more. I think Alex just admitted to being the fraudulent voter in the BBOTT scandals.
I didn't know
we were accused all season long, and it was Alex all along with the VPNs and the federal perjury.
I cared about getting Allison into the house a lot.
No.
I couldn't drum up the same passion for the OTT.
Exactly. Taran, Alex Kidwell he's old and reliable. He uses his powers for good, not evil. Okay. That's
okay. That's the company line. Okay, I got it.
Okay. Anyway. No, reliable.
Not even 30.
No, I loved Allison. I love Allison. I think Allison is amazing. I think Allison's great. I think the problem with Allison, as far as coming back for All Stars with the producers, I think that Allison kind of got a raw deal. She came into the house. She did the safe play, which I think was probably the right play. She got into the people that were in power, and that was really pretty good for her. She was kind of also screwed by Canada's HOH because the power was dismantled and she was left on the outs. Even then, she was in a position to strike at Netta, and she got instant evicted. Like she was in a position where she was going to be the underdog. She was going to be that like outside power that was going to do something crazy, and she was just out in a flash. And I think it's wasted potential. Obviously, I think the move to evict Arlie was probably her worst mistake, or letting it happen at the very least. But I think she would be good if she came back, and I think she's a really great character. I think she's she could be a really great player if she came back. I would love to see her back, but I don't know if she will be asked back. That's the only unfortunate.
Have you guys ever thought about what would have happened if they would have evicted Adele there? I've always wondered how would that season have ended.
Completely different.
Talk about the butterfly effect. I always go back to that. There's a couple of reality TV series where if this person made this decision and they switched it, and you were able to
it completely changes it. There's one every season for Big Brother Canada. There's and we don't need to get into it. That should actually be a podcast.
You were one of them, Georgia.
I was one of them. Yes, that's true. Let's jump to Taran. You're last on the list, my friend. Who is your honorable mention?
All right, this is a person. I think it's realistic that she could be asked back. I would love to see her asked back. I think it's a travesty if she's not asked back. Sarah Miller, Mumsy, she needs to come back. She wants to come back. She's a good player. I need to see her come back. She got a raw deal. I really think she deserves to be. To have another chance. I think she will play hard. I think she's a good character. I think she's a great person to have. She brings an energy that a lot of other players don't bring. And I really appreciate that with her. And I think she would really add a lot to the texture of an all-star cast. And I would really love to see it happen. I think there are a lot of other people that were fan favorites that were more visible than she was, unfortunately. But if they're looking to create a good cast, I think they have to include Mumsy.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is why I didn't make this list, because I'm really good friends with her in real life. But I think that Mumsy would be a fantastic addition to any cast. Brent, you had her on your list. You did have her on your list, did you not?
Yes, I had her on my list at number 10, and Taran had her on his list at number 9. So yeah, there was. I love Mumsy. I do think that she does tend to follow the leader a little bit, and never more so during the week that Paul was evicted. Remember, the girls wanted to evict Heather, and the boys wanted to evict Paul, and ultimately, Sarah just did exactly what Kenny wanted her to do the entire time. And she went down with the ship. And, would she make that mistake again? I don't think so. But I'm still kind of bummed that she'd made it in the first place. I mean, she was a vibrant woman, and the fact that she just sort of went along to get along. I mean, there's definitely a time and a place for that in Big Brother, but I don't know that was necessarily it. So, yeah.
All right.
I'm ambivalent at best.
Alex Kidwell, you're a huge Mumsy fan. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I really like Sarah Miller. Sarah Miller, Allison White. I would probably even throw in some people like Ashley Wood from your season. I think there's a lot of people that if you're giving me, control over this season and saying cast whoever you want to make the best strategic game possible, these people are absolutely making my season. That's not what we were asked to do here today. We were asked to think about realistically, based on what we think production would be looking for, who would get in there. And I think the problem with Allison, the problem with Ashley, the problem with Sarah is all kind of similar, is that you put them up next to people who maybe weren't as good as them strategically, like an Ika, like a Tala, and I think ultimately, when you're looking to, if we are making this season, hypothetically an all-star season, what we're really trying to do with it is, establish Big Brother Canada, get the series picked up for a few years. That's what all-stars should be about. I mean, it really cements the legacy of a series. It reminds people what's great about this show, and it gets them locked in for more years to come. And I think Unfortunately, when you're trying to do that, the number one priority is recognizable faces, recognizable moments, big, boisterous things. And unfortunately, that's not, what you're getting from Mumsy. You're getting smart and calculated and strategic. And I think she's someone who could absolutely have a great chance to win this game if she was cast. I just have trouble seeing how she gets there in a top 8 type of scenario when there's, Nettas and Casses who also bring that level of strategy and maybe are able to provide more in the way of sound bites and kind of like quick, witticisms or whatever in the diary room.
Right. Melissa, any final thoughts on Mumsy before we move on?
Yeah, I basically just agree. I think that, I didn't like that she kind of just followed along and just I didn't really feel like she had any memorable moves on her own. So I was just kind of bored with her game, and maybe she did play like a good game, but I was just kind of boring. And I think that in this situation, the producers aren't looking for like solid, boring games. I think they're looking for like Alex said, like the big moves, the big exciting things. I just don't feel like she really brings that.
All right, so let's move on over to the male side. And,
what about your honorable mention?
Yeah, what about your honorable mention?
We're gonna, for me, I have, some people I never really, and that was people who I wanted to say that I want to see on All Stars, but at the same time, we don't got a lot of time, so I'm not going to list my people until the very end unless we do it.
Jordan's special, everyone. I do want to say very quickly, I think Ashley is the person that producers will underestimate the most in terms of like what they think people will want. I think they should bring back Ashley. I think it's a shame that she isn't mentioned more in this podcast because I would love to see Ashley.
Then why didn't you put her on you didn't put her on your list? I had her on my list.
Yeah,
huh?
I got to choose between her and Mumsy. That's a hard choice, man.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah,
it's a hard choice, Brent. It's a hard choice.
Talking out of both sides of his mouth.
I think Mumsy is more realistic than Ashley. That's what I'm saying. I feel like producers are going to underestimate her, and I don't think she deserves it.
I would agree with that. I think Ashley is great. Let's go to the guys' side. Okay, so number 1 on the male side. This I was, and for the we're well into this. This might go 4 hours. I'm a little.
Who cares? Everybody's here because they want to be here.
No, this is great. I just want to say, Melissa, I'm sorry I didn't tell you you're signing up for an endurance competition tonight. But congratulations, you're still in it. And for the people watching, we still got a lot of people here. So,
I just got out of my coffin like 3 hours ago. We're fine.
Well, Taran's got the robot. You got to go to sleep like in an hour or something like that.
Gonna power down.
I mean, it's like the apocalypse outside right now, so I'm probably going into work late anyway.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's great. So we'll go a little later then. Okay, we'll keep going. Let's go with the guys now. Number 1 on the guy side. You guys got this 100% right in my book. This is who I would put on the show. I hope this is who the producers would put at number 1. This person was at number 1 on every single list except one list. And that was Taran's, but Taran had him at number 2. He is just the best. He was the runner-up on Big Brother Canada 3. He won 1 HOH, 1 Power Veto. He was nominated 5 times, and he's infamous for his speeches and his Air Godfrey jump. It is the great Godfrey Manguiza, the lady pleaser. Well done, LFC, on getting Godfrey on this list. I love this pick. I didn't have a vote, but would have been my clear number 1. Melissa, tell me, why do we all love Godfrey so much?
He brings the entertainment. He's definitely there to entertain. And I mean, he was like a fan favorite. People loved him. And I know that the producers would definitely ask him back. I mean, there's no question. So, I mean, he got all the way down to the end. So he definitely will be asked back.
What do you think this story is going to be, Alex, with Godfrey? Do you think that a lot of people are going to gun after him right away? Or do you think that he is going to be somebody who is able to fly under the radar a little bit?
I think it's very possible Godfrey could fly under the radar given just kind of some of the other names we're throwing out here. I don't think he's necessarily seen as the most strategic guy. I mean, here's a guy who, from what we understand, if he had taken Ashley, he wins, and he chooses to take Sarah. So I don't think people should necessarily be super scared of him. Well, they probably should be more scared of him than I think they will end up being. For me, it's interesting because I think part of the reason Godfrey would be, an automatic and a really great choice for a return is that I don't think the producers really knew what they had with Godfrey until the last few weeks of the season. They weren't featuring him nearly as prominently because, I mean, he was really sleeping and he was laying low. And I don't think that they really were aware, like, here's a soundbite goldmine. Like, this guy really can provide great, insightful and entertaining moments in the diary room and kind of outside, just in the context of the game. So I think, if you're starting from square one, knowing what you have with Godfrey, I mean, that creates a much more interesting dynamic. I mean, he can be a very, very entertaining narrator, and we know that now. So I think he's someone you could definitely lean on. On any cast, you're going to need a few people who you can expect to narrate things in the diary room in a very entertaining and charismatic way. And I think Godfrey is like on a very short list of names of people who are super, super capable at doing that.
Taran, how do you think Godfrey would do? Do you think he could win this thing?
I think that Godfrey is in a great position, actually. I think that losing finalist is a great place to come into a season like this, because people aren't as threatened by you, even though you made it so far, because you lost a jury vote. And that kind of like really puts a stain on you. And I think that not only that, but Godfrey is a player that is able to position himself really well as a tool for other people to use. That's what got him so far in Big Brother Canada 3. And with an all-star cast, if they're smart, they're going to see Godfrey as a tool to be used, and they're going to use him, and they're going to bring him pretty far. And then he just needs to maneuver a little bit more, get a little lucky, and maybe he gets to the end, and maybe he's a little more respected this time.
And fiction.
I'm saying this is a possibility because that's Godfrey's strength, and I think that being in an all-star cast can play up to his strengths. The thing I'm scared about, though, is that Godfrey is also somebody that really likes to get in there and play around. And if Godfrey is too aggressive at the start, like he was in Big Brother Canada 3, that will not be tolerated in an all-star season. He needs to do his second half of season 3 game, not his first half, because the second half is what the all-stars will appreciate and what they'll play with. The first half is what they'll cut out of there immediately.
Yeah, I think he will do the second half. I think Godfrey really did learn from his first few weeks. And you can go listen if you are curious to hear more about Godfrey's game. I did a podcast with him in January of last year. It's an amazing podcast, Brent. I'm sorry. This is not the time or place, but
I'm just saying,
podcast very entertaining. Highly recommend.
This is what you need to know about Godfrey. The fact that I am not a Godfrey stan. I believe there's a lot of revisionist history going on with Godfrey. I don't believe all that he said he did this, did it, but that's besides the point. It doesn't matter what I think, okay? The fact is that they would call him back. I am not a Godfrey stan, and even I know that he's the number one person that should be asked back on an all-star season. He was a fan favorite. He's going to give people what they want. He's going to do what the fans want. I think he has an eye for what the Canada fans want, and they are a special breed when it comes to Big Brother. They're more invested in the game as a country than we are here in the U.S. And I think the one thing that I hope that they do if they cast him is they institute the anti-Sir Sleep a Lot rule, and then they do what BBOTT did, which is say you can't sleep from this hour to this hour. You've got to be up out of the bed.
Well, that was the rule in our house, and that Godfrey just seemed to get away with it. I don't know why.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Well, they need to take away that stipend money, honey.
No, everyone tried.
Didn't he find that spot under the stairs where a camera couldn't see him?
Yes, he did.
I admire that, man. I'm sorry. I respect that level.
All right, I admire that too.
Get a nap in.
No, I like that too. It's very impressive from Godfrey.
Napper myself. I have nothing.
And by the way, it's a different question whether or not he's going to be cast. Obviously, I think he's going to be cast. He's on my list because of that. As to how he would do in the game, that's a different question. But I think he would do well, if only because I think people really enjoy Godfrey's presence. They want to be around him. He's a fun guy. He's not somebody. There's going to be people in there irritating the living hell out of you. Why are you going to get rid of Godfrey unless he actually makes a mistake like he made? I feel like can be construed as a mistake during Big Brother Canada 3 and actually come for somebody's head. If he doesn't do that, then I feel like that people will keep him around for a while.
Different podcast for a different day, but I think Godfrey calling out Zach was brilliant. But anyway, in terms of him making it very far,
I'm not arguing that.
If you want to listen to if you want to go listen to that podcast, you can find out why that was so brilliant. Number 2 for the guys was a tie as well, similar to the girls. We had a tie near the top. Let's start. We'll go in alphabetical order. This person we have mentioned already on this podcast. They were a runner-up like Godfrey, except it was on Big Brother Canada 1. This person had 2 HOH wins, 2 POV wins, and was nominated 5 times. He made it to day 71, was only in the house for 57 days because he came back and is infamous for the Topaz situation. It is Gary Levy. He comes in at number 2 on this list. He was pretty high on everybody's list from what I can remember. Yeah, so we have him at number 3 on Alex's list. He was number 4 on Brent's list. He was number 3 on Melissa's, and number 4 for Taran. Let's talk a little bit about Gary Levy. Taran Armstrong, how do you think Gary would be received this time around? I mean, he did the sideshow for a bit. Doesn't come on the sideshow anymore. He was a fan favorite the first time, but now he's going to be playing with a lot of people that are really, really popular as well.
I'm not sure he's going to come off as well the second time around. I don't think that he's necessarily the same person this time around. I think that the different circumstances will dictate different responses. That said, I predicted the same of James in Big Brother 18, and I feel like James did a lot better than I expected James to do. Granted, it's still James, and people still don't like James that much.
Yeah, that's a bit of a grading curve there. Yeah.
Yes. But when you talk about who are the producers going to ask back, and you talk about who are the faces of Big Brother Canada, Gary Levy is one of the faces of Big Brother Canada. It would not be an all-star season, at least I think in the producers' eyes, without Gary there. I don't know what the circumstances were with him not being on the sides show anymore. Maybe that indicates some sort of like distaste that the producers have for him moving forward, but I doubt it. I think that he's going to come back. I think, mark it down.
Melissa, you and Alex were the highest on Gary. Why have him as high as you did, and how do you think he would do?
I think that he's a face of Big Brother Canada, and I think that he's a character that he's very out there, and he's also been associated with Big Brother Canada as it's continued. So I think that there's no way they're not going to bring him back. Plus, he has like the whole redemption storyline where it's like he should have won or whatever. Like he almost won. He go to him accidentally. And so it's like he could come back and be like, I'm going to reclaim my rightful title or whatever. And so he's got that storyline. He's just so he's iconic in terms of like the look, the personality, everything. So, love him or hate him, I think he would definitely be asked back.
Alex, similar thoughts on that? You think Gary would be more of you think the casual fans would be all over Gary coming back, I would have to think.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like everyone, if you even just watched a little bit of, Big Brother Canada, like footage, you should know Gary. I mean, Gary is a very, arguably the most iconic figure, I think, from season 1, certainly down the stretch when he's, evicted and he comes back in and it looks like Emmett and Jillian are going to just roll with this thing. I mean, I do remember the fans, hopes and dreams were riding on Gary there down the stretch. And that's a big part of what made the Topaz thing so shocking. Gary really was a huge fan favorite the first season. And I don't think that time necessarily has diminished. The people that really enjoyed Gary the first time would enjoy him back. To speak to what Taran said, I mean, I do think that there may be some element of production, wondering if this is, somebody who, my understanding is that maybe he's a bit of a handful to deal with. I mean, certainly we've seen that with Slop and stuff like that, where he was just, so besides himself at the idea of having to deal with some of these things. But ultimately, I think, unlike a Sabrina, where to me, I think the juice would not be worth the squeeze in bringing her back because of some of the other options you have. I think Gary represents such a unique and charismatic persona that you pretty much have no choice. Like, even if production doesn't want him back, you have to have him back. There's simply no option. I mean, here's a guy who was, so unique, just, as a character for your first season, but just in the grand scheme of Big Brother people. I mean, here's a guy who was creating alter egos, Zoe Wimber and Darnell or whatever, his macho version was. And, he's very interesting because he's got this very, feminine kind of unique qualities to him. And then he'll go out there and just dominate like a baseball throwing competition because he's just got such a, eclectic background. And I think Gary represents something very unique still to this day in Big Brother casting. And I would be stunned. I mean, just floored if this kind of thing were to happen and it wouldn't involve him in some way.
Brent, how do you think Gary would do? And what do you think he would have to do differently? Or do you think it's impossible for Gary to change his game up?
I worry that maybe he would go the Marcellus route and be a little bit into himself and how he's seen as like with his fans and everything. I mean, we don't care about that. We want to see him play the game, get in there and play the game. So I hope he wouldn't be too full of himself and, Gary's been known to be that way in the past. I'll just put it that way. So I've heard some rumors about some things that have happened on the sideshow, and you never know what the producers think of him. I mean, if we're looking at this, in a vacuum, would they cast him on the show? I agree with Alex. He's a no-brainer because of what he brings to the show. There's never been anybody like him. They tried to sort of redo it again with Scott in the War Room and Big Brother Canada 2, and nobody was really buying what he was selling. So Gary is definitely a transcendent figure, and I think it's a lock for him to come back.
All right, let's move on to the person who tied Gary for the number 2 spot on this list. And I'll be honest, this surprised me a little bit because I think there are some bigger names on the board, but I'll let you guys explain this to me. This person came in 9th place on Big Brother Canada 3. He won 2 HOHs. He won 2 POVs. He was nominated 3 times. He's infamous for the triple eviction and the bathroom incident. It is my good pal, Kevin Martin. So Kevin Martin, Kmart, he is on the list at number 2, at least for a tie. That's here on this list. You guys were all relatively high on Kevin. Taran, I was shocked that you guys had him this high. I think there are at least 2 or 3 names that should be above Kevin in terms of who production would want to call. So explain this to me. Why have him here on this list?
When you think about standout male characters from Big Brother Canada 3, apart from you, obviously, Jordan, it's Kevin.
Don't patronize me, Taran. Come on.
It's Kevin. Kevin was the star of the show for a long time, even when he was doing nothing. And he's so charismatic, and that's why he's so successful in what he's doing with streaming with poker. And the streaming with poker, ironically, is also the thing that I feel like might hold him back from being on an All-Star season. He might not accept the call. But I think they're going to want Kevin. I think that Kevin represents something that is not necessarily represented anywhere else except for maybe Mitch. As far as like popular fan favorites who would come back and fulfill that role that he fulfills. And I think that Kevin is probably a more TV friendly version of that. And I think that Kevin is somebody that they definitely want back. The question for me is he willing to? He's doing really well with the poker thing. I don't know if he can spare the time right now.
Yeah, I mean, he signed with PokerStars, so that's another thing to consider as well. He's got a contract. I don't know how that works. So that is definitely something
Just
to consider.
wear their gear on the feeds, I think, as long as you're doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure BB Can would love that. Him wearing like brand names and everything, which is what we're definitely not allowed to do.
Like the new NASCAR. Yeah.
Right?
Let him set up like a poker table and like a dedicated camera, and he can just be streaming poker while he's in the house.
And
Yeah, I was saying he needs to make those cards. I know he tried to make some playing cards out of paper towels and mustard the first time, but get some tinfoil together and make something a little more stable and see what happens there.
Brent, you wanted to jump in.
Wait for a stop that.
Well, I was just going to say, Taran and Alex probably are a little bit more realistic. They have him at number 5. Melissa and I have him at number 2, which is why he's so high on the list. And I just think it's because he's such a producer's pet boy. They love people like Kevin, who, he's strategic. He's got a smile on his face. He knows how to give great confessionals. He knows how to play the game. He knows what move to make at the right time. He's willing to do. Does everybody remember the whole thing with the balloon where he had to go out and pop the balloon and he had to hide it from everybody? I mean, they always went for guys like that because he knows he can pull off the task. I don't think that there's any reason that he wouldn't come back unless it was because of outside interests like his poker career. But for me, he's a lock by far, and more so than I think other people are. And I think you're underestimating him if you don't think he belongs this high on the list.
Melissa, what do you think about Kevin as a player? How do you think he would do on a second chance, and what do you think he'd have to change about his game from the first time?
I'm not sure. I just know that he'd probably have to. I think that he just needs to be charming and friendly and personable and get everybody to like him, and then just lay low in terms of strategy in the beginning. Like, he can be doing his own thing behind the scenes, but don't put yourself out there in the front. And I think that he has so much potential to do well because he's so strategic and because he's got that like charm about him that people just like gravitate towards. I just think that he could really do well in an All-Star season.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll have to see with that one. I disagree with. We're gonna list a few names here that I'm sorry, we have another tie. I didn't realize we had 2 ties back to back.
Jordan, just quickly, one last thing on Kevin is just I would like to say that I think, I don't have like confessional count numbers in front of me or anything. And I know this guy goes out 9th in your season, but the way he goes out with the triple eviction, seemingly so unfair, especially for him, because, required a veto, required a lot of things to really kind of go wrong for him to be screwed in this specific scenario. So obviously, he's got that, playing in, but also I think, from what I remember, he really dominated confessionals in narrating. I mean, from your season in the first half. I mean, here's a guy who really can tell the story of the season and explain it in a way that everyone gets it. I mean, he was breaking down complex strategy to Peely using candy. This is a guy who you want in your house to explain to people what's happening.
I love
that was the thing. Like, even when Kevin wasn't doing much, he was still talking a lot in the show, right? And so that I think that tells you a lot about how the producers see him.
Yeah, I would be curious to know, like, if there's like a confessionals per episode you were on. I would assume Kevin's #1 in Big Brother Canada history.
Oh yeah,
I actually think Cindy was there was a list for my season. I think
could see that.
Cindy was #1 on my season just because she wasn't on a ton of episodes, but she had a ton of confessionals. But I do think that Kevin was up there very high. And I think that, there is something to be said for Kevin in that, he was getting the strategy edit in the house when he was going into the diary room every week to vote, and he was doing this. Yeah. And he was by himself doing that. I wasn't doing that, and he was getting the strategy. So I think that tells us something about how the producers feel about Kevin. And Kevin, I love you, but I mean, I'm sorry I clowned you on that, and I do feel bad about it. But I'm just saying,
that was a mistake on everyone's part.
That was a mistake on everyone's part. It was, but that does show that they really do love him. Okay, let's go to number 4. This is so a tie for number 4 again. And again, we're going to go alphabetical order here. These 2 here, I would have put above Kevin. I think you could argue these 2 could both be #1. This first guy we have here, he's a winner. He won 3 HOHs. He won 3 power vetoes. He was nominated 1 time, and he's infamous for cutting Netta, backstabbing Arlie, getting drunk with Allison. It's the winner of Big Brother Canada 2. My main man, Big JP John Party, is a first person here at a tie for number 4. So I think he's too low here. Alex, you had him down at 7. Why not higher?
Just because I don't necessarily know how production feels about John right now. I know John is he's a really fun and charismatic guy, and I wonder if he's not someone who's partially represented by other people on the cast.
Thank you.
And when I started to just go through the list, I really like John as a player, and I think ultimately you do have to include the winners. That's something I was talking about, and like when I came down to it, I felt like I needed to have representation of all winners on my list. But I think John is one of the winners that him and Jillian are the 2 winners. They're the furthest back. I think they were, the least quirky and they're, and memorable in terms of their personality. Certainly, like the brothers, just by playing them as a duo.
Wait.
A crazier element than John.
You said John is not memorable? John Party?
I think when you compare John and Jillian to Sarah and the twins, I think you've
completely disagree.
Well, that's fine, man. But I think they're newer, they're fresher in your memory, and they brought dynamics that you hadn't really seen before. Whereas I think John in many ways represents like a solid, typical Big Brother winner for a strong, typical season. I think he's a great player. I just think that ultimately, once I was going down the list, I found names that came to me that I was like, I think they would probably get the call first ultimately, because what John brings, I mean, he's really entertaining, but so's Kevin. He was a winner, but so are the brothers. I mean, there's just a lot of things here I think that you can attribute to other people. And I don't know that John has a lot of things where John brings that and nobody else does.
And I actually realized, Alex, you were not the lowest on John, but we'll get. It's getting. We've been on this podcast for a few hours now, so give me a break. We'll come back to that. Taran, you wanted to jump in.
I mean, I'm certainly not in touch with the general Canadian public, but as far as I'm concerned, I think John is the most popular winner they have.
Yes, yes,
and it's
he
probably not
is.
close.
It's not close. John. Well,
yeah.
Sarah's very popular too, but
Right.
John is so popular. So popular.
I just feel like there's no way they don't want John back. It doesn't matter if he's represented by other people. He is one of the iconic figures in Big Brother Canada history. I think that his season is the most popular season. He's the most popular winner. If we're talking about what the producers want, they want to attract the level of fervor and fandom that they had in season 2, and they're going to want to bring John back to entice that.
Well, that's why I cast him.
Okay, Brent, I'll let you go. What's up? What do you want to say about John?
No, I wasn't saying I want to go up. I was just waving the right flag.
Why don't you? Yeah, so tell me, why did you have John on your list? I think you're crazy.
Okay,
man.
I don't have John on my list, and I don't have the next person on my list. I don't have John on my list because as I was casting this, I was trying to be responsible. I cast this list as a whole.
That's how production would want to do it. And
I've got Netta on the list, and I didn't think they're going to bring back John and Netta. I really don't think they're going to bring back John and Netta. I think they're going to have one or the other. So maybe they'll bring back John and not Netta. I don't know. I said that was a possibility, but I don't have John on the list. I'm with Alex on this one. I think that attributes of John are present in other people that we have in this cast, that I have in this cast, that are more recent. And you can say what you want about John was a popular winner. Sure. I mean, he was kind of bland sometimes. It was all about the Netta and John show.
Oh my gosh, Brent.
Settle down, JP.
This is worse than your Godfrey take.
I feel like your bias is showing a little bit on this one because you're friends with these people. Like, I'm not attacking him personally. I mean, he's a very fun guy and I'd love to hang out with him. But as far as the TV show goes, I think that there are other people that they would plug in this spot. I do.
Okay.
I think you're crazy to think that they wouldn't want John and Netta together like that. Yeah. Like that's what people want to see.
Yeah, Melissa, talk to me about this. I mean, you've got two exes. Would you not want to put them together? Be like, right? If they got, for God forbid, got back together, could you imagine the fans would lose their mind?
Oh my God. It would be amazing to see them on the show together. Like me as a fan, like I would love to see them back on the show together. Like I don't know what happened. I don't know the like outside stuff, but like to see them back together, like not only because like now they're exes, but also like he betrayed her. Like you want to see
that. Yeah, but then you
want to see her get her revenge. You want to see Netta become out ahead.
She went and slept with him right after that, so I don't think she really cares.
No, but I think that the game.
Come on.
I think
come on.
In terms of real life, like she can put it aside and be like, you know what, like I like you as a person, blah blah blah. But in the game, like if they're playing Big Brother again, like you know she's gonna want revenge. Like she's not just gonna be like, oh cool, like whatever. I think she would try and play him just the way he played her. And I do think that I agree with you guys. If he didn't win, he wouldn't be memorable. Like if he got out like midway through and that was it, like I don't think he'd be a memorable player. But I think because he won, he's a memorable player. I think that's Big Brother Canada 2 is like an amazing season. John and Netta were amazing together. John won. He betrayed Netta. You know, there's so many like storylines wrapped around that. And then I think if you bring back both John and Netta, it's just
I'm laughing at the chat room. Like, look, this would be a very boring podcast if we all agreed. And I would also like to point out that I put my list up before anybody else's, so everybody knew right away what I did with my list. So there you go.
Melissa, quickly, how do you think John would do if he were to play again?
I think he might do pretty well. I think he'd kind of fly under the radar. I don't think people are thinking, oh, he's such a great strategist. I think there's a lot of other bigger personalities that people would target first, and then he'd kind of just slip under there, and then it would be like, oh, wait, how did he get to the end? I definitely could see him doing well again.
Yeah, I would agree. I think John's got a very underrated social game, strategically very strong. I think John would do very well if he were to go back. Let's go to this other person who John tied with at number 4 on this list.
Yes, let's.
And this person also was not on Brent's list. Surprise, surprise.
And he was also not on Melissa's list.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm sorry. You're right. Okay, throwing Melissa under the bus. You're right.
Well, Melissa's with me on this. But then on the flip side of things, he was number 1 on Taran's list and number 2 on Alex's list.
Let's talk about him. He came in 6th place on Big Brother Canada 1. He did not win HOH because he threw every single competition. He won 2 power vetoes. He was nominated twice. He's infamous for the Shield, the Sideshow, Marsha the Moose, and a bunch of other stuff. It's Peter Brown. So
Peter Brown.
Yes, it's Peter Brown. Peter Brown is in at number 4 in a tie with John Party here. I think that Taran made a good call putting him at number 1. I think Peter would definitely be one of the first people called back, assuming that he would be freed from his sideshow duties to go ahead and play. Melissa, tell me why you did not have Peter Brown on your list.
I think you should go to Brent for this question because this has partially to do with the fact that I'm not as familiar with season 1 as I am with the rest of the seasons.
That's fair.
I didn't watch the live feeds.
Sure.
I didn't.
That's fair, and she did tell us that ahead of time. I will say, look, there's a couple of things going on here. Number 1, I'm hoping that he's not freed from his duties on the sideshow. I'm hoping that he's stuck there on the sideshow, so I don't have to listen to him on another season. Just pontificate about this and that and what his rankings are of people, and somehow he ends up number 1 on that list of rankings that he himself put together. Girl, please. Like, I'm tired of hearing about Peter Brown. He's not that special. He's not that smart. I don't think they'd ask him back because they don't want to put up with this bullshit on another season of Big Brother. There, I said it.
Okay, I completely disagree. I think production loves Peter Brown.
Besides, he has a whole acting gig on The Flash now. Like, he doesn't have time for this.
He's got time. He's an extra.
Crossover appeal. Now he's got crossover appeal.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
The Legend of Tomorrow, Brent.
Oh, boy.
Peter's a guy. He's in the first big name alliance of the show's history. He's a huge character on the first season of the show. He's on the sideshow. He's been prominent every.
Let me defend it a bit more. This
okay.
Look, I know you guys are laughing, and the chat room doesn't like the fact that I took this into consideration, the fact that we have all these duos, but they're really tight duos. And
who's Peter's duo?
Spoiler alert, I have Alec on my list, so I don't think in any universe they're going to cast them both in the house. So I took Peter off, so that you can argue with me about it all you want, but if this really is an all-star season, I just really wonder how many oh my God, real duos they're going to cast in the house together. I don't think they're going to cast that many because we've seen that story before.
The Shield is literally molded in the fashion of Chilltown. And Chilltown came back.
It's a poor man's Chilltown, and you know it. It isn't even
saying they're comparable.
Zip code as Chilltown.
I'm not saying that they are Chilltown. I'm saying
that made that argument about Big Brother Canada as a whole. So
right.
That's so funny.
But I keep talking about faces of the franchise. I feel like Peter Brown is the face of the franchise.
Well, that's an unfortunate face. They must be looking at its backside if they're looking at that.
Like it or not, I think he is. I think that there's a reason he was picked for the sideshow. There's a reason he has been on the sideshow for all 3 seasons that the sideshow has been in activeness. And I think that they feel like they can't have an all-star season without Peter Brown. I think that a lot of fans feel like you can't have an all-star season without Peter Brown. He is just so intricately tied with the series that it would be crazy that he wouldn't be there.
Alex, I want to get your take on this. Where did you have Peter in your ranks? I
had Peter number 2, and I think this element of people who've played together as tight pairs, I think is something that we're going to talk about again. I think this is an interesting element, and I think that's really the biggest deviation in terms of casting. And I think Brent went a route that I think is understandable, and I went a route that's understandable. Which you really have to make an executive decision when you're kind of putting this kind of a list together. As if you're really going to try to separate people from people they played with before and people they've worked with before. Ultimately, I decided to just kind of ignore that. And I was actually pretty happy that it ended up providing multiple, circumstances of people. Everyone's on there with someone they've worked with before to some degree. And everyone's on there with, in some cases, people are on there with people they played very closely with, but I don't know that they necessarily would be able to again, or if they did, they would be targeted very quickly for it. So I think it's interesting, and I could certainly see how that element would lead you to, make changes on the cast one way or another more than pretty much any other element that we're discussing here.
All right, let's jump to number 6 on the list. And I think this is 3 in a row that Brent did not put on his.
No way, really?
List. Yeah, this is 3 in a row.
Wow,
but again, this is we're putting an asterisk on Brent not putting this person on because Brent followed the duos thing. This person came in 3rd place, also from Big Brother Canada 1, and you could argue, hey, also maybe a face of the franchise. He's been involved, I think, in every season of the show in terms of making an appearance on actual episodes. He had 2 HOH wins, 3 POV wins. He was nominated twice. He's infamous for his showmance with Jillian being Dan Giesling's chosen one, and by getting cut by Gary at the final 3, it is Emmett Blois. So Emmett comes in at number 6. I think Emmett would also be very high on production's wish list because of his track record in terms of being asked back to make all of these appearances with, giving advice to Netta with Jillian in season 2. And then he came in the diary room in season 3. He came in the house to help Levita and Kelsey hide the poker chips in season 4. So I think Emmett's a guy that, production really wants to remind us, hey, don't forget Emmett. We're going to bring it back at some point. Talk to me about Emmett, Alex Kidwell. What are your thoughts on him in general? How do you think he'd do if he were to go back?
The milkman cometh, Jordan. Emmett, I think, he's very iconic. We talk about, like, if you're going to have someone from the first season, I think they have to be someone who's iconic, someone who you immediately, like, an image comes to mind. Like, you think Tala, or you think Gary, and Gary, weeping over slop. You think Emmett, and you think of that challenge where he's forced to drink milk until he vomits. It's just so hysterical. And, pledging a fraternity-esque, I guess I would say. But like ultimately, Emmett is somebody who really was like the first standout, alpha male type character. I think you're always going to represent that archetype on any season. You have to. There's really no season of these shows I've seen where you don't have kind of the guy who has the good pool body, and Emmett definitely brings that. Emmett is someone who actually brings a lot of strategic insight for someone that also fills the role as a good pool body. So I think there's a lot to like from Emmett from a casting standpoint. I think he really kind of sits in the middle of a Venn diagram in terms of the girls at home who love to watch him, in terms of the people at home who like strategy and enjoyed seeing what he was able to do in terms of kind of hoodwinking the Shield. So I think Emmett really, hits a lot of boxes when you're talking about people who deserve a shot on this kind of a season.
Taran Armstrong, your thoughts on Emmett Blois. How does Emmett do if he goes back in the house?
I think it's probably tough for Emmett. I think that he's probably going to be a target. I think that he's a big guy. He's an athletic guy. He's known for strategy. Those are all really bad things to be in a house full of other people who are smart and know what they're doing in the game. You know what I mean? I think that he is known as being one of the best players to play. Even when he's sitting next to somebody like Netta, at the very least, you're not super scared of Netta winning a bunch of competitions like you are with Emmett. Emmett, that if winning competitions was a cornerstone of his game, and that's very, very threatening. It's very immediately threatening. And so I'm very scared for Emmett if he does come back, but I do think he has a very, very good shot of coming back. As you mentioned, Jordan, I think that one of the biggest tells we have for all-star casts is who are the producers already looking at? Who are they bringing onto the sideshow? Who are they bringing into the house? And Emmett is somebody that they are constantly having their eye on. He's clearly somebody who loves the competition. He loves to go on these shows. He was just on The Amazing Race. I think he would love to do it if they offered it to him. So I think if there's an all-star season, you can count on Emmett being there.
Melissa, do you think if Jillian was with Emmett, do you think that hurts him or do you think that helps him?
I think it hurts him because I think that then people are going to see them as a target and be like, oh, they were able to get really far the first time. Like we gotta get at least one of them out. I don't know which way it would go, but I definitely think that it's not necessarily a benefit for him if they're both on together.
Also too, Melissa, just check your mic in a second. It's just making some like weird sounds. So just maybe just check that for a second.
It sounded like there was a short in it, like what was happening with Taran earlier.
It sounded like Taran's circuits were like breaking into Melissa's computer.
Yeah, he infected you, Melissa.
Yes. Brent, okay, so again, you leave Emmett off because of your whole
I'm sorry. It's a broken record
okay.
at this point.
It's a broken record.
I'm sorry. I tried to
just talk to me about Emmett. How do you feel about Emmett?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I wasn't all that loving Emmett during his first season. I thought Jillian was far and away the bigger character with those two people. And I know I'm in the minority on that one, but I enjoyed watching someone like Jillian who was just balls to the wall competitor. She was a little Janelle-esque with what she was able to do. She absolutely ruled that season like a queen, and I know that he was right there along with her. I think I will say that his social game was certainly better than Jill's, and there's that to take into account. Certainly him hoodwinking Peter to not use the veto on Topaz was one of the most interesting moments of Big Brother Canada 1. You can say I made a mistake by not including him on my list, and I take your point. But again, I have Jillian on my list. I think she's coming back, and I really don't think they want to have, like, I feel like they either have to go one way or the other. They either have to do all duos and have everybody with somebody they really were tight with and just populate the entire cast with it, or they really have to watch what they're doing, and they're not going to do it that much. And I think he might fall by the wayside because of that.
Yeah, definitely an interesting dynamic that the production would have to keep
I mean,
in
this
mind.
comes up over and over again, and maybe it's because there was only 4 seasons of this, and on Big Brother Canada Big Brother US 7, there were 6 seasons, and 4 of those.
Five seasons, really. 5
Oh
seasons.
yeah,
We
you're
don't
right.
count
They didn't
season
include
1.
anybody for. Well, they included Chicken George.
but
Yeah, so yeah.
They didn't count season 1. It's a different game.
Okay.
Okay, let's jump to number 7 on the list. Thank you to everybody who's staying up so late. We appreciate it. Number 7 on the list is a guy who is also a winner. He had 3 HOH wins, 4 POV wins, and was nominated twice. But there's a little bit of an asterisk next to that because he got help from his brother. It is Phil Pockette. So Phil comes in at number 7 on this list. First off, Melissa, I want to ask you, how do you think Phil would do without Nick?
I don't know. It's tough to say. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really have a strong feeling between either one of the brothers. So it was kind of like I knew that production would probably include one of them because they'd be interested to see how they would fare by themselves. But I didn't have a strong feeling one way or the other in terms of like which brother to pick. And I basically just saw that everyone else picked Phil. So I was like, all right, I'll pick him too. But I honestly am not a huge fan of the brothers at all. I had no strong feelings about them throughout the entire series, and I basically didn't care about them. So no preference.
Okay. Yeah. Check your mic again, Melissa. I don't know if you want to unplug it or plug it back in again, or
maybe like enter and re-enter or something. I'm not sure, but it's definitely started to do that thing, which is sort of weird. Like out of nowhere, it just started doing that. That's crazy.
Very strange.
Sabotage.
Freaking mics.
Who knows what it is? Alex Kidwell, you actually on your list, you listed Nick and Phil. You listed both of them together, thinking that production would ask them both. I agree with you. I think production would ask them both back, not just one of them, or just Phil or just Nick. But explain your thought process on that.
Yes, thank you, Jordan. So yeah, we talk about, you got to include the winners. You got to include these dynamic duos. Well, I'm the only one that has both Pax brothers on my list. So I'm just
and you have them, and as one player, we're talking
as one player. Look,
yes,
this is an all-star season. To me, the point of an all-star season is to bring back players that did well and see how they will do in a new circumstance as the same player. That player was Fick, and Fick is who comes back because Fick is who won Big Brother Canada 4. Not Phil, not Nick, Fick. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know if at this point, if it's a drawback or an advantage for them to have to play together again and, put them back in there together. Everybody knows what it means that they're playing as a duo now. Everyone knows what their strengths and weaknesses are as individuals and as a pair. And there's no uncertainty anymore here. I don't see why we can't just throw them back together as a duo. I certainly understand that it's unconventional. It was unconventional to do it in the first place. Now that they've won, I think you have to double down. I think if you're going to have an all-star season, you have to have all your winners. And one of your winners happened to be a duo. Now they have to return as a duo. That was my thinking.
Taran, you had the opposite opinion on this. What's the counter to that?
Yeah, I feel like it's tired. I feel like to bring them back as a pair, we already saw this, right? And they have the opportunity to give us something new. Like Phil coming in without his brother. How does Phil do without the calming influence of Nick, right? That's a storyline that they have. Coming in together as one player again, it's the same storyline. It's, how can we learn to play as a we already did that. You know what I mean? So I feel like they won't do it again. I feel like they're not going to retread old paths. They're going to say, let's do something new with the brothers. Let's take probably the more dynamic one, Phil, the crazier one, the one that's probably not as good at the game. And let's bring him in and let's see how he does alone. Let's see what kind of mayhem that he brings. So that's why I picked Phil and not Nick, and not as the.
I think if you're wondering why Melissa and Taran and myself, broke up the brothers and just put one on the list, you need to look no further than the fact that all three of us chose the same person. We all chose Phil and put him on our list. We did not choose Nick because Phil is the player here. And I mean player, I mean a bad player. He's a terrible player. I don't think he would do very good on this season if he was cast. He was crazy on Big Brother Canada 4. And without his brother, it says here he would have been gone in a flash. But his brother was good enough socially where people got along with the brothers. And, I give them their due. I'm done hating the brothers. For those of you who don't remember, this was infamously the night that I wore my veil, that when the brothers won over Kelsey on Big Brother Canada 4. And, I think I'm trying to remember how I felt about Phil early on, before I knew Nick was going to be in there with him, and I really liked what I saw from him because he just seemed a little nutso in the best possible way. There's somebody that we want to see on the feed, somebody who we want to root against and root for, and I feel like Phil owns the villain hat like no other, and he doesn't really mind that he's sort of being a villain. He's sort of like the winking devil in the confessional, where he knows that the audience knows that he's lying and he's winking along with them.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I kind of feel like Phil would do well if he was by himself, just because people would say, oh, well, Nick's not here, so we don't need to worry about him. I think that, like you said, Brent, Nick's that calming presence. I think Nick won pretty much all of those competitions as well. So I think that that's something to consider as well if he were to get the call to go back. Okay, let's go to number 8. Last spot on the male side. We've also got an alternate as well. This guy came in 11th place on Big Brother Canada 4. He had 0 HOH wins, 0 POV wins, and was nominated once. Hey, that's the same stat line as I have. He was infamous for his famous speech and getting screwed over by a stupid twist. We've talked hours and hours about this guy, so why not have him on this list? It's Mitch Moffett. Mitch Moffett just squeaks in here at number 8. And I don't think anybody will. I mean, I was a little surprised that you guys had Mitch on here because
I don't have him on my list.
Okay, well, he makes the final list.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if production would ask Mitch back. I would love to see Mitch back. I would want to have him on the show, but I don't really know if he's somebody who production is dying to have on the show. Melissa, you had Mitch relatively high. Why?
Yeah, I feel like production would. Oh, is my mic okay?
Your mic's
yes.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. I feel like production would want him back because I thought that he was playing a really good game and he had great potential. And he also made that like iconic speech. I know I've said iconic like a bunch of times, but that's kind of what I was going for.
That's okay.
Was,
That's
like,
your scintillating.
yeah, exactly. I was trying to go for Big Brother icons. So, I mean, he made that speech that was like a famous speech. Like people were like quoting it and like reposting it and tweeting about it and everything. And I feel like people also saw the potential there, and he's got that huge following on YouTube. I feel like there's just so many different elements that would come together to make production want to have him back.
Taran, I know how if I asked you how Mitch was going to do, I know what your answer would be. So I'll ask you this: do you think Mitch would think it's worthwhile to leave behind his very successful YouTube career to go back and play Big Brother again if it means he could just get screwed over by a twist like he did last time?
I think it's less of a given than it is with other people, but I think he would. I think that he loves Big Brother. He's a competitive guy. I think he'd like to be on the show again. It's probably a thing where it's like, if the timing doesn't match up, then he might not. But if the timing does match up, I think he would. And when I think about Mitch, I think that the way he went out of the game was so big and explosive, and I think he made his mark. That said, I don't know if Mitch goes into this cast if Kevin is there. I feel like they have a similar role. And so if Kevin doesn't turn it down because of poker, then I feel like Mitch maybe doesn't go there. Maybe we have our alternate in instead. But if Mitch turns it down and Kevin you know what I mean? I feel like it's one or the other. And I feel like Kevin is more likely. If this was obviously, if this was my choice, Mitch is my number one pick of like basically anyone.
Surprise.
But I would love to see him back. I think he would do decently well. I think that I don't think he's like super involved in the community, so I don't know if he has a lot of like connections, and I think his reputation would be a hindrance, but I don't think he would do terribly, obviously. I think he has a lot of great skills. So I would love to see him back. I think he's definitely on the list of people to come back. I think the way that he handled how he went out, right? Where he was totally screwed and we were like going crazy and like screaming at production, and he was like, it's all right, things happen. I feel like they have to have appreciated the way that he handled it, and I think that they feel like they can trust him as a person of like, yeah, like he's a great person that we can have on. He's got a large following. I think it's not a given, but I think it's definitely a possibility that he's on an all-star cast.
Yeah, and I think, from looking at the chat room, I see a lot of people think, this is like, we're not ranking on Mitch's potential for a second game and not what he did. We're ranking exclusively on what we have. Mitch brings a following that no one else really brings. I mean, we know tangibly from looking at people who were posting and people who were watching last season that there were newcomers to Big Brother Canada solely because Mitch brought them. I mean, Mitch brought an audience to the show that wasn't there before because they were followers of him. That's the kind of thing you need. If you're Big Brother Canada, you're making an all-star season, you're trying to cement your feet in the ground as a lasting empire of a reality franchise. You want to maximize the crossover potential. You want to maximize the reach. Mitch is a really, really great spokesperson for your game. He really understands it. He can break it down well. He does YouTube videos about the game and science and stuff after the fact. I mean, he really showcases a lot of what you'd be looking for in terms of a personality to bring to the show. Even if you didn't respect the game he played, you have to respect that he provided great TV moments, i.e. I will be the one to exercise and deal with your cancer, and the following he brings. That in and of itself makes him an all-star. It's nothing to do with like, oh, here's a guy we think could do well if given a second chance. No, this is a guy who we know tangibly brings a lot that production would be looking for.
All right, there we go. Yeah, the whole social media mogul aspect to it, Brent. I think that's
Real
something.
I'm sorry.
Wait.
He's such a social media mogul and has such a great following that he brought to the cast that this show barely got renewed for a 5th season. Give me a freaking
Maybe
break.
he's the reason it barely got renewed.
This is
thanks, Mitch.
Hold on. In terms of barely being renewed, and the issue with the show is not ratings. It's that a new parent company bought Global.
Details, schmetails. Look, the point. Look, I shut up while y'all talked, and I love Mitch, and if I was casting the season, he would be number 1 because I would love to see what he would come back and do. But let's be honest, it was a little bit too little, too late as far as the speech goes. He really only let it fly when he knew he was going out of the house. He kept it all in before that. He wasn't somebody who was just amazing to watch on TV or the feeds for that matter, unless you're into really intricate, subtle strategy and seeing things like that. And I know Taran is, and that's great. And I know we all say we like that sort of thing, but when you cast a bunch of super fans on a season, you're not necessarily going to get a great product. We saw that in Big Brother Canada 3. No Tino Shea Jordan. But I just think that there's no way. You guys are kidding yourself if you think that this is going to be the first 8. He's going to be among the first 8 guys that they call.
Okay,
I really don't see it.
I have him at number 9, so he is
fabulous. Thank you. Come on the island with me.
Okay,
my number 8. I mean, you barely made it.
Yeah. So okay, well then let's talk about this next person. Then the alternate we have here, who Taran says maybe we wouldn't have both Kevin and Mitch. Maybe we'd have this guy instead. I also think we could have this guy. I would love to see this guy. I think production would want to see this guy. Came in 9th place on Big Brother Canada 2. He did not win HOH. He won POV twice. He was nominated twice. It is Kenny Brain, ladies and gentlemen. Kenny was a big, people in the preseason were high on Kenny. The whole first 5 thing happened and some people soured on him. But I think deep down, Kenny is a very super nice, likable, genuine dude. Kind of like when parents are like, this is something that happened to me when I was a kid. My mom was like, now, Jordan, don't go hang out with so-and-so because they're a bad influence on you and you're a good boy. And I don't want you to become a bad boy and someone that people, don't like and are going to want to vote for you to not get twists so that you get voted out of your elementary school class. That's kind of what I think happened with Kenny. Kind of got in with, Andrew and Sabrina. I think that if he's on a different cast, he's with some different people. I think maybe it's a bit of a different story.
If
for
he
him.
goes in the house at a different point, he goes with different people. And remember, he was part of the first 5 because they were the first 5. That was the only reason why he ended up with them. So it's sort of insane to think that if the producers put him in the house second, that he probably isn't in one of the most hated alliances in Big Brother Canada history. But look, I love Kenny. I think he brings a lot to the table in terms of feeds, in terms of what the TV wants. I mean, as somebody just reminded me in the chat, one of my famous quotes, this is, after all, first and foremost, a TV show. It is not something taking place in a vacuum or a game taking place in a vacuum, and it has to be entertaining to watch. Kenny brings that. He was definitely entertaining for me to watch. He was all over the board, from telling Ika to F off to crying with Mumsy in the spa. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't ask him back on a season, unless again, I've said this before, but other qualities of him might be filled by other people currently in the cast.
And also, speaking of social media moguls, speaking of social media moguls, I think Kenny's might have the most Instagram followers of anyone in
I'm shocked.
history. But I'm just saying. But anyway, I mean,
does he have the beard now or not? Does anybody know?
Oh,
he's got the beard. Oh, I liked him without the beard. I saw that picture of him without the beard, and he looked so amazingly hot. And then, okay.
He's a handsome dude.
He's still handsome. I just prefer him without the beard.
That's lumberjack model. I don't know why he would go away from that.
Yeah, okay. He's good at it too. And I mean, go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
I think Kenny really represents. We talked about people who represent unique casting. I think Kenny is a great example of that. Kenny is someone there's not really a mold for as far as an archetype. Here's a guy that came into the house. I'm gay, but I'm also like completely open to a showmance with a woman for the strategy of the game. That was something that I remember being very innovative, and a lot of people were really curious to see how that would play out. It didn't necessarily end up like creating anything too dramatic, but I mean, I really remember Kenny being kind of at least for me, like a revolutionary kind of character. I mean, here's a guy that doesn't at all fit like the stereotypical casting mold for a gay man. I mean, Kenny really did kind of represent breaking away from the norm, and something that I think we really have come to love about Big Brother Canada casting is that they don't just find like the next, Frankie Grande or the next like similar kind of personality to just fill a casting slot. I mean, I think Kenny is really interesting in that he's very strategic. He was clearly in a position of power for a large part of the game, like the first half of the game. He's also, he's a gay man. So if you're, obviously when you're doing the archetypes and all that, he fills a role. And then he really does, I think, just represent a bit of unfinished potential as well. And like, here's someone who looked like he could go the distance. He certainly was capable in competitions. He was able to make friends and get in there socially. It just kind of, once the first 5 thing exploded, it kind of all blew up in his face. So I think, while this is an all-star season, obviously Kenny, I have him at like number 10, so he would just miss my cut if I was casting it. I think, it's very easy to see how he could end up on a list, especially if a couple people turned it down.
Yeah,
go ahead, Taran.
I think an important part is he's memorable. People remember Kenny. He has a unique look. He was a unique personality, and I think that goes a long way.
Melissa, any final thoughts on Kenny?
Yeah, I agree with what you said about falling in with the wrong crowd. I liked Kenny a lot at first, and then the more he was with that alliance, I kind of like fell off the Kenny train. But I think that if he goes in with a different group, he could go super far, and I think he'd do really well and also be a fan favorite. So I think it'd be great to have him on.
I will say something really quickly about what Alex reminded me about something. I had forgotten the fact that he effectively went into the house in the closet, and I didn't love that the first time around. I felt like he was sort of sending us back into the dark ages as far as the LGBT community. I didn't love the fact that he felt like it was something he had to hide. He can say he was doing it for strategic reasons, but I felt like there was also an element of he was still a little bit scared about that. And I mean, maybe he might quibble with me about that, but I did feel like there was an element to that. So if he goes back again, it would be nice to see that he could be his full self and not have to hide anything. So there you go.
All right. It is getting very late on the East Coast, so let's roll through.
Just so you know, Jordan, don't blame yourself. It's not like we've been talking forever. We started at 10:30 because we were waiting for Alex. So I'm not throwing Alex. I'm not throwing you on. Look, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I'm just saying you keep talking about that, but we haven't been talking that long, okay? We waited for a freaking half an hour, so get over it, all right? People are here. They want to listen to us.
Hey, I'm just saying.
All right.
Brent, you just gotta understand, man.
I apologize.
One, Alex, don't worry.
I'm
And
not
two,
throwing shade at him. I'm just saying, I'm reminding him.
Two, Taran's got to work tomorrow, man. So let's try and, work towards in. So I'm not saying we're going to cut it short. I'm just saying maybe let's go into the hurry up offense here for the honorable mentions. So, okay, let's just quickly roll through this. Alex Kidwell, if you're okay from getting run over by that bus, please, who is your honorable mention male?
Yeah, call the hospital. I done shattered my hip. So I have Nick Pockette as my honorable mention male, but I really feel like I kind of addressed this in the sense that, you know, I get all the winners in there, get the brothers back in as a duo. And again, I think I'm going to, call a little audible now that I see that nobody actually picked this guy and continue kind of this theme of why I think duos ultimately do work. Alec Beal did make my list along with Peter Brown. And so I think, when I'm looking at the cast I kind of like this element. You've got the Chilltown, you've got the Shield. We've made the comparison so many times. I'm actually giving it to him at this point. We've got, Sarah and B. We've got John and Netta. We've got the Pax possesses playing as one.
Emmett and Jillian.
We've got like all these varying elements now of people who work
Gary
together.
and Ika. Yeah.
So now that you've got all that, I think it creates really interesting. I think everyone has someone or a couple people they could think they can latch onto, but can you really trust that person to play the same game? To me, it really works out. So yeah, I'm gonna switch it up, go with Alec Beal here, because as I've already said, Nick is in there. But I think, to me, that's almost the most intriguing thing about if we were to do All Stars now. We're only drawing from 4 seasons, and I could see how a lot of people would say that's too soon to be doing All Stars. Kind of the cool thing about it to me is that you're going to have all these existing dynamics that are going to be put to the test right away.
Melissa, let's talk about your male representative. I was so happy when you put this guy on your list.
My honorable mention is Poppin' Paul Jackson.
Yes, hooray, dude! I love it.
He was so funny, mostly unintentionally, with his whole I need to be the bad guy. He just created so many weird strategies that he thought in his own mind were justified and were the right move, but really none of them were the right move, and it was so funny to watch. He was just hilarious. He was so and I mean, not to mention the fact that I don't know if you guys saw on Reddit, but apparently he's getting fit for BBK All Stars.
Paul is jacked.
He's real fit.
Yeah, if you see him
jacked.
Yeah, if you go on Facebook, I'm pretty sure if you just search Paul Jackson, Paul's the kind of guy. I'm pretty sure he's a nice guy. You can just add him on Facebook, and I think Paul would let you. He'll accept you, and you can see Paul's looking good. So I agree with that sentiment, Melissa. I think it will be. I don't think.
Yeah, he's ready.
I think Paul is ready. I would put Paul in my season. I don't know if the producers would necessarily call him, but that is definitely their loss. Let's go
to All Stars.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're gonna put on a Chicken George, I feel like Paul is better than Chicken George, right?
The better version, totally, of Chicken George. Taran, let's go to you. Who is your male honorable mention?
Bruno.
Bruno. Thank you for getting Bruno on here. I was pissed that Bruno didn't make the final list. I think Bruno deserves another shot.
Yeah. Okay. So this again was I don't know realistically if they're gonna pick Bruno. I think that Bruno is a great choice. I don't know if he popped off the screen enough for the producers to be like, yeah, we definitely need Bruno. I think they should. I think Bruno is a great player to have in the mix. I think that he was a good player. I think that he got a little bit of a raw deal with all the twists that happened in season 3. And I think he wants to come back, and I think he's ready for it. And I think the people that really are amped to come back, those are the people that should be back, because they're the ones that are going to go crazy when they get into the house. I think that it would be a mistake not to include Bruno, even though I think realistically it might not be as likely as some of these other people.
It's one of those things. If I got to cast it, Bruno would be on the short list for me. I mean, I really loved watching him play the game. I think he really approached it from a cerebral standpoint and very intelligently and mostly methodically, except for the couple times where he lost his cool. And I'm sure he'd be the first to admit that those were, missteps in his game. But yeah, I mean, like Taran said, I wonder if given the, you know, the cocktail that you seem to need on these kinds of shows to return. And granted, we've never seen them bring back people. We don't necessarily know what they're looking for. But if I had to guess, I would think they really want to find people who just, you know, popped on screen. And I think it's unfortunate that Bruno's, you know, the couple of moments he really got to shine in terms of airtime weren't the most flattering looks. Like the first one, he's put on the spot immediately. Do you want to use this, like, what he had, like, a instant power of veto, the double veto, right? Yeah. And that's a moment to, like, create, to have a big memorable move. Unfortunately, it wasn't in his best interest to do it there. So, you know, it ends up being squandered potential, at least from a memorable TV character standpoint. And then, you know, being on the other side of the Sarah thing, I mean, it certainly kind of paints him in a bit of a negative light. And I just think it's hard to see how Bruno claws his way through some of these, like, characters that are just so remembered for some of these more you know, profound, you know, large acts. I mean, I don't think it's because she's the best player ever that Sierra Easton is being asked back for the third time so quickly on Survivor, but it's that big moves element. And I think, unfortunately, Bruno is smart enough to know when not to make a big move, and that kind of hurts him in this kind of scenario.
Yeah, and like his gutsiest move is probably using the veto on Zach during the triple eviction.
Yeah, oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But nobody wanted to see that. So it didn't really
articulated at that moment how big of a move it was, how gutsy it is on the show.
Yeah, crazy move. I said it in the house, and it ultimately came back to bite me. But poor man's Dan Giesling, Bruno Aiello. There, I said it. He's a great player. Brent, you're last up here. Who do you got as your male honorable mention? This is a great one.
This is I'm so on my own island on this one, you guys. I really have to tell you, I had this person as number 3 on my list, and I put my list again first before anybody else. I thought for sure somebody would come with me. None of you bitches did, so that's fine. I'll sit over here on my own island. That's fine. I love me some Andrew freaking Gordon from season 2. He was everything that I wanted in a Big Brother contestant. He was a villain. He was mean. He was apologetic. He couldn't control his temper. He whored out with Allison. I mean, he was just great. He ruled that house with an iron fist. And if not for some bullshit twist in Canada's HOH, where he couldn't even protect himself because they wouldn't, in the veto competition, they wouldn't say who was the replacement nominee. So, of course, anybody who won the veto was never going to use the veto because they don't know if one of their allies is going to go up. They totally set him up for a fall, something we've never seen before. And I think that they introduced the Canada's HOH twist because they knew where that season was headed. The first 5 was going to take it. Somebody from that alliance was going to win the game. And I think Andrew had a real shot at being not the winner, but I do think he would have been the final 2 GOATs. So it's funny, Alex pointed out that I have Allison and Andrew as my honorable mentions. I didn't do it on purpose, but that's the way it worked out. They were the 2 top people that didn't make the overall list, and I think Andrew would just be fantastic television. He was wonderful to watch.
I loved seeing the chat's reaction to that pick.
Yes, I don't remember Captain Kosher being such great TV.
Oh my God!
Wait, is that the wrong Andrew Gordon?
Yes, yes. Andrew James Gordon. But go ahead, Taran.
I don't think we should forget that Andrew was the target had the other side of the house won that HOH for the Canada's HOH week. It's not like it would never have happened without that happening. It's just that he had better odds of surviving, but he still could have gone out that week.
Yeah, I think I'm with the majority of the LFC here. I don't know if Andrew would necessarily be back. I also don't know if Andrew wants to go back.
No, it's fine. But there's always a few people that were like, why are they back? And they don't even really want to be back, but somehow they got onto the show.
That's fair.
So who knows?
Well, I do feel like I get where Bert's coming from in the sense that, like, if you're bringing back memorable characters, I think he was a memorable villain, even for his short-lived stint on the season. I mean, he's, just very ignorant and, like, doing this Jamaican accent to Ika, and he's just, there was a lot of moments where I think Andrew really, like, puts his foot in his mouth and really comes off as the bad guy. He has to be the bad guy. He can't help himself.
Yeah. He has to be the bad guy.
But yeah, I think ultimately the reason he misses my list, and I made a like a quick list, where I just jotted down people I thought could potentially make my list, and then gradually whittled down. And Andrew was on the quick list because ultimately I came to a decision, and I'm like, do I include memorable good and bad personalities, or do I do what I ultimately did? Include all the memorable good personalities and wait for new people to rise into villain shoes as they inevitably will. So I think, you could go 2 directions with it. Casting villains is a direction I chose not to go. And I'm just like, I guess at that point, hopeful that we'll see, competitive edges win out and people just naturally gravitate towards antagonism.
Yeah, and I think that there are definitely some people who could fall into that role that are listed on your guys' list. I would just say,
I just want to say really quickly, like
the
chat is giving me hell for this pick, and I understand where you're coming from. I didn't love Andrew Gordon on his season when I was watching it, but in hindsight, I realize I miss people like this when they're gone. Like you hate them while they're there. You want to get rid of them. And then the minute they're gone, like a week later, you're like, oh, I really like the tension that they brought to the house. Because after that, it was like a snowball rolling down the hill. Like
speak for yourself, Brent.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I do think that it's important to have villains. Like you've got to have someone to root against, or else it's kind of just dull. I think that you want the heroes to prevail over the villain. And if you don't have any villains, then you're kind of just like, okay. I mean, people will make villains out of themselves, but I think that he's right in that he was an interesting, fascinating character. So I get it.
All right. Quickly, I just want to
waiting on that heel turn from the Shield,
right? Quickly, I just want to give. I said I had some honorable mentions before. When these guys came with their list, I threw them in there. I didn't, want to list them earlier because I wasn't sure if we're gonna have enough time. But I'll just quickly list some people that I would want to see that did not get listed here, and that I think potentially could get a call. Adele from season 2. I think he's a great character. Wake up, Canada! I love Adele El-Sari. I think he's great. He's just got so much energy and passion. Think he would love to go back on the show. It'd be great. Arlie Shaban, another one from season 2. I think he's somebody who you guys did not mention, who I think would be great to go on the show. Do I know if production would ask him back? I don't know, but I think Arlie would do. He showed a lot of potential. I think he'd be great if he were on the show. Andrew Monahan, other Andrew, Uncle Andrew. I love him. I think he would be great. Liza, somebody who I think is not talked about, but I think Liza would be so good if Liza was on the show. I think
underrated.
Yeah, Liza would. She's got strategy. I think she would bring some entertainment to the show as well.
Her talking about that, the ox and the ram strategy is the closest we've had to someone trying to Parvati this thing.
Yes, exactly.
In my mind.
Yes. So there we go. I'm trying to think what else. Somebody in the chat say Levita. Levita was already said, so I'm not going to say Levita, but she would be on my my honorable mentions if she was not mentioned. Ashley Wood obviously is one. I think Willow would be great, of course. And I'm trying to think who else.
Oh, just name all your friends. Come on.
Matt, and another one too. I don't think
his bases.
Another one who I don't think gets talked about enough, Maddie Pavel. I think Maddie would bring a lot of drama to the show as well.
Love Maddie.
Not only that, she could, she'd be on pace to break the record for all-time showmances on Big Brother history. Should be fantastic. Go, Maddie.
No. Maddie was again, like Cindy. I think she was a person who was very polarizing. You either loved her or you hated her.
Loved her.
She was.
I think there are a lot of people that say I think it's probably too early for an all-star season. But for me, at least, going through all these people, going and making out these lists, I feel like we're still missing people just from the lists we've made. I don't think it's too early. I feel like we already have enough people.
I don't think it's too early either.
I think we could easily see an all-star season here, and still have people left over. So I don't think it's too early at all.
You guys. So that's Taran's thoughts. Melissa, what do you think about that? You agree?
Yeah, I don't think it's too early for an all-star season. I think this would be an awesome season to watch. I would love to watch it. And I think that the longer you wait, the less people you get to have on the show that you actually really liked throughout the seasons. And they just like one or two memorable characters and then they just throw them in there. Whereas if you keep doing an all-stars like earlier, you're going to get and also more people who have relationships with each other on their seasons and more potential for drama and more potential for different alliances to form.
Right. No, totally. If they go that direction,
Yeah,
like I mean, we saw in Survivor Heroes versus Villains with all of these interpersonal relationships that people had from previous games together. And, if they go that route and they cast a bunch of people who have, relationships, good or bad with people that they end up living with in the house, I would love to see that experiment. And, I personally, with the men and the women, I was a little bit the reverse of Melissa. I had more men on my list than women who I felt like could be or should be brought back. But I was definitely eliminating people. It wasn't an easy choice to get down to my top 10. So there's plenty of people for them to choose from.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you include the honorable mentions, include all those people that I just listed at the end there. I mean, there's tons and tons of people, I think. So I totally think that they could do an all-star season. I think they should just do it. I think they really should. I think we gave them a great cast here. And just to refresh everyone's memories, here is the cast one more time that the LFC came up with. So on the female side, they put Netta Kalantar, Cassandra, Sarah Handlin, Ika Wong, Jillian, Cindy with an S, Tala, Brittany Blair, and Levita as the alternate. On the male side, Godfrey Manguiza, Gary Levy, Kevin Martin, Peter Brown, John Party, Emmett Blois, Phil Pockette, Mitch Moffett, and Kenny Brain as the alternate. I think that would be a great season. I think it would be a lot of fun.
And I almost got Andrew Gordon into the cast just on the strength of my vote.
You almost did. You
almost, damn it.
Not this time.
He owes you a beer at his House of Brewery or whatever he works at.
Yeah, that's right. That you can taste the hops better if you drink it shirtless, Brent. That's what I hear.
Right.
But anyway, guys, thank you so much for the LFC for doing this list. Again, disclaimer: these were not my picks. So if you have beef, take it up with the LFC, especially Alex Kidwell. Yeah. But thank you guys so much for your hard work. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching this live. We really appreciate it. We had a solid, number of viewers the whole way through. So kudos to you guys. It's pretty late on the East Coast, so thank you very much. Guys, we need a hashtag for this episode. Anybody?
I had it. It was when Taran said the thing about estimated her. He didn't underestimate her. He estimated her, or so maybe hashtag estimated her or something like that.
Properly estimated? Was that
something like that? It was just I don't know.
I said estimated and then I clarified.
Yeah. I don't know if you've got something better. I just remember that Taran said that and I died.
How about go fick yourself?
Go fick yourself. I like that. Or hashtag
all right.
Or fic. Hashtag fic. I think that was good.
Yeah, anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So if you want to go hashtag fic, we'll go with that. That's good. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. If you want to subscribe to our Happy Hour and never miss an episode of our BB Can 5 coverage, we will be doing podcasts once we get some more info about the cast and all that stuff. You can go to robhaswebsite.com/RHAPpy for that. We've got a couple podcasts coming up within the next little while. I don't want to necessarily say what they are yet because I've got to lock some of them down, but I should have some content for you in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully you guys will check that out. I will say, if you have a Valentine's Day is coming up, if you have a dating and relationship question that you want a panel of friends of Rob as a podcast to answer, you can send those to me. There's a tweet at the top of my Twitter that you can the profile, and you can there's a little form you can fill out and submit your question there, completely anonymous. I won't know who you are. We've got a lot of submissions for that already, but if you want to submit those, we're going to be recording that over the weekend. So if you're listening live, feel free to go ahead, or if you're listening on Friday or early Saturday, feel free to do so. Okay. I think that's going to do it, guys. Is there anything, any final thoughts? I think we kind of covered everything here.
Whatever you do, just don't bring back some returnees. All or nothing, Big Brother Canada. Don't make the mistake that Big Brother US continues to make. Just, you
do the full thing, right?
Don't stick your toe in the pool. You dive in head first, or you get back in the friggin' house, okay?
Yes, thank you. Full all-star season or not at all, okay? We don't want this half and half BS. It doesn't work. We've seen it on BBUS. We just gave you a good cast. Feel free to use it. We don't care. You can use that if you want, or we give you our real picks. But I don't know. I think that you guys did a decent job projecting what, who they would be looking for and what they would want to see. So anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this edition of the Happy Hour. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we go, I'm just going to, don't forget to follow these guys on Twitter. Alex is at Alex Kidwell. Brent is at One Lucky Gay. Melissa is at It's Melissa with 3 A's. Melissa, is that it?
Yes.
Three A's. Okay, 3 A's. Thank you. And Taran Armstrong is at Armstrong Taran. Make sure you tweet us if you made it all the way to the end of this super long edition of the podcast. Use the hashtag. Let us know what you think. Leave some comments on robhaswebsite.com. Love to hear what you guys have to say. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of the Happy Hour. For Alex Kidwell, Brent Walgamont, Melissa Denny, and Taran Armstrong, I'm Jordan Parhar. Hashtag FIC. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Peace out.